Halloween
forever.
Welcome to Halloween is Forever, the show with three different hostess with the mostest. I'm Brian.
I'm Meg.
I'm Steve.
And we're back together again, guys.
Meg's back!
Meg has returned.
Reunited and it feels so good. It was very, we had a, for those of you who didn't listen to last week's episode, first ever episode, sans Meg. Meg was off, what I can only presume, doing drugs in the desert. And
I was getting allergies in the desert. I brought drugs with the intention to do drugs, and I got allergies.
But then you did
instead.
Benadryl to get rid of your allergies, so you still did drugs.
Yeah, there you go.
Did different kinds of drugs.
Party
Yeah.
animal. And we were lost without you. Although we had a very fun show with our good
great.
buddy Brandon Getz talking about werewolves and whatnot. But we're the crew's back together. We're
Yeah.
in person.
We are
We're
here.
ready to fucking rock and roll. We've got a Showdown episode now. For those of you who are listening, this is our November Showdown episode. This is going to come out on November the 1. So yesterday was Halloween. If you're feeling a little down, if you're feeling a little depressed that spooky season is over for the year, let's take a step back with us because we're recording this on the Thursday before Halloween. We are on the precipice of All Hallows Eve. It is the 28th of October. So feel free to step back in time with us. And for the next couple of hours, enjoy the spooky ooky vibes for just a couple more hours. And then you can start absorbing all the fucking Christmas commercials that are already, I'm sure, on TV.
Push
on
back
November
against
1st.
the Christmas creep
Yeah.
with our show.
Yeah. It is
For
Halloween
every-
just for a couple more hours.
For every Christmas commercial you start seeing, go watch an old Halloween ad.
Yes.
Like,
Go watch
their
footage
Instagram
of Snicker
profiles.
Treat
Yeah.
immediately after that. But we are going to talk about a decidedly spooky, ooky, Halloween-centric topic. Everyone who follows us on the social media and were so kind as to help us decide what our topic is for our Showdown episode for November helped us to select the topic of haunted houses. So we're going to talk about haunted house flicks tonight. Each of us have picked our film. We are ready to defend it. We are ready to rip each other's guts out. We're ready to... Meg has already threatened to turn heel very early on. It's going to be a bloodthirsty episode. For those of you who have not listened to the show before, what we do is we each pick a movie that is pertains to a particular topic. We talk about it, and then we defend it. And then at the end, we vote to see who is going to take home the strap, going to take home the belt. We've got some orders of business at the top of the show to discuss, first of all, but I think it's appropriate because Meg... She took it home last month. The October
This belt
episode.
felt so at home with me.
Yeah.
Like I
Were you
slept
walking
with
through
it.
the airport just swinging your fucking arms like Conor
Fuck yeah,
McGregor
it
walking
was.
through the airport?
Yes, I absolutely was.
And then people would ask about it and you would just stun them. Stone cold stunner. Not even like, hey, actually, it's a podcast. You should listen to our podcast. No, fucking stone cold stunner right in the middle of
Absolutely.
Terminal A.
Not a strong
Don't ask
marketing
questions.
program, but we can work on it. But
Listen, here's what you get. I sent out some stickers today to Virginia, actually.
Beautiful.
If you
Virginia.
write a review for us on the Apple Podcast,
Can we get
you,
we get a T-shirt that says "Virginia is for horror lovers"?
sure.
Virginia's for whores,
Yeah.
but it's spelled like whore.
Right.
Anyway, I don't know why that's.
It can have like a skeleton and a Dracula on it to
Yeah.
like really reinforce that.
Yeah.
So
I'm a big fan of calling vampires Draculas, too,
Yeah.
and calling them Frankensteins. Like saw a bunch of Frankensteins.
I like saying Dracula,
Draculars.
putting an R on it.
But yeah, you write us a review on the Apple Podcast. We've already said this before. Say it again. You write us a review on the Apple Podcast. You screenshot it, send it to me. I'll send you some stickers. But if you see us in the airport, we give you the fucking Stone Cold Stunner. That's how it goes. So write a review, get a sticker.
The only
approach
reason
us
why
in
I'm
person,
traveling,
get a Stone Cold Stunner.
the only reason why I was traveling was to get people Stone Cold Stunners.
Yeah.
That was it.
Did anybody like sell it real hard, like the Rock style, and like do a whole like full on flip and headstand? Literally one of the ways that I determine some of my favorite wrestlers of all time is how hard they sell the stunner.
Right.
That's all I care about. That's really all I care about.
D'Lo Brown.
D'Lo.
At the top.
D'Lo, The Rock, Shane McMahon,
Scott Hall.
Yeah. Oh gosh. All right. Well, so Meg took home the strap last month in our John Carpenter roulette episode. Listen, I'm not proposing an asterisk. I'm just
Excuse me?
saying
It was the nature of the event.
it was
That's
the
all.
nature of the event. I got fucked.
Yeah, we're not going to argue that.
Meg,
We're not.
Steve
Hey,
got
all I
fucked
can say
slightly
is,
less.
hey,
Right.
Brian, work harder.
Be better. Do better. That's what I'm going to do this time around, guys. But the point is, I'm not bitter. What I'm saying is, Meg gets to choose the order for this episode.
Yeah.
So are you prepared to discuss? We got some other things to talk about, but are we prepared to discuss who's going to go first, second, third?
I think I'm good.
Yeah.
Yeah. It's going to be Steve,
Okay.
Steve's going first. Okay.
you,
Oh,
Brian.
you're bringing it up last. Okay.
I'm going to go last.
You're going up last. Okay.
Hmm.
All right.
Okay.
Fine. Terrible strategy. Terrible strategy. She's giving this thing away. So we'll get into it here in a second, guys.
No, I'm saving the best for last, bud.
Yeah. You know Meg is going to go full heel when she starts calling people Bud at the top of the
Right.
show. Just Chief Bud right at the top of the show.
Unprepared, bud. But
Yeah. We're in for fucking slobber knocker, guys. Barn burner. But before we get into that, let's get all the pleasantries out of the way before we start duking
Maybe
it out.
not so pleasantries. Let's
Yeah,
go.
that's true. Maybe not so pleasantries. First of all, let's talk about beers first. Beers is pleasant.
Sure.
What beers do we have?
Well, fucking Steve's drinking PBR.
Yeah, Steve. It's
Coffee
not-
Ish.
PBR.
Yeah.
Ish.
Steve, talk about how you're a garbage person.
oh yeah, so things I love are coffee, and I love sweet treats. And PBR has decided to make coffee sweet treats
Yeah.
as of late within the past couple years.
Yeah.
So
Also
I'm really
boozy,
into
so
those.
you can't forget the booze.
And
Yeah.
you've got a festive one here for those who are listening, who are in the future. We are, of course, in the past. You've got a winter spice
Yes.
version of the PBR hard coffee.
Yeah. I feel like I'm bridging the gap right now because even as we're talking, I almost ran over some trick-or-treaters on my way in.
Oh, really?
Oh, yeah. They're all out on the street. So I feel like I'm bridging the gap because I have this chocolatey, like, there's hardly any noticeable coffee in this.
No, not really.
But-
It tastes like Yoo-Hoo.
It tastes like a bit like Yoo-Hoo.
Spiced Yoo-Hoo.
Yeah, spicy Yoo-Hoo with a little bit of booze in it. So I feel like I'm bridging the gap between trick or treat,
Mhm.
got my chocolate candies,
Yeah.
but then it's got the winter spice, so it's cinnamon and nutmeg, which isn't terribly winter, exclusive.
Right, right.
So it goes all the way through. And
I'm
that's what I'm
wearing
enjoying.
my beanie right now, so I
Yeah.
say those are very winter spices. That just like dubs me the, heat miser of
I
sorts.
do
Fair
like
enough.
that. He miser. I do like that Steve is drinking it out of a footed tulip glass as well.
You asked what was appropriate. I felt that would help hold the aroma best.
Yeah,
It's
it
got
really-
those cinnamon nutmeg, flavors that I have to, breathe in as I drink my
It really
5%.
concentrates the aromatics
Right.
of the PBR.
I didn't hate it.
Meg, what do you got?
So I had a friend gift me. Let's see. It's called 53 Magnum. Ooh, wow. Bing, bing.
She did the guidance, guys. She did the fingers, just in case you're wondering.
Right.
For those at home.
For the audio only format.
Yeah.
It's a barrel-aged Czech style Pilsner, aged 6 months in Chardonnay barrels. And I'm trying to figure out exactly. Brewed and canned by Cross Strain Brewing. Let's see. They're in Nebraska.
Beautiful Nebraska.
We got it. We got it. We're going for it.
We got it. We
yeah,
did it.
no, it's nice. I feel like Brian definitely broke it apart way better than I did when he tried it before we started
No,
the show.
it's
in a good way. I mean, like you definitely, I think, got way more nuance than I did.
Czech. I certainly wouldn't drink it and say Czech pills by any stretch of the imagination. Obviously, I imagine the recipe looks like that of a Czech pills, but it tastes like a barrel-aged, bready, golden beer.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? Definitely got some of them yummy, horse blanket, composty, wet hay type of aromas, and maybe a little mousy hamster cage in there. All the yummiest descriptors you can imagine. All those
Steve
things
immediately was
in the
like,
most
I'm
attractive
good.
way.
I don't want to try this. I find it very pleasant. So like even with all,
It's subtle. The Brett character is subtle.
You know what? I used to ride horses.
Yeah.
I think this is why I like it.
Yeah. It's just bringing back that nostalgic horse sweat smell for you.
Meg's just like, I used to be a horse girl, so I'm into this.
You called me a horse girl. Fuck you.
I'm not going to say you didn't just say it.
Yeah.
Yo, I'm still the champ. You can't say that.
You can't say that. You don't champs. You can't call me horse
You
girl.
don't say that. You don't say that to me.
I'm not.
The horse girl Meg at it again. It's actually
I'm fucking dying.
I like it because the Brett character is subtle. It's not over the top, but it is absolutely there. I am going with something considerably less avant-garde. Meg gifted me a can of a beer that I had probably drank the first time, oh boy, 20 years ago. I don't know. It's been quite a long time, 15 years ago. But I have not had in a while. But this is a classic American craft beer. I've got to say, probably Big Sky Brewing. It's got to be one of the first craft breweries in Montana, right? It's got to be right up there.
Yep.
Certainly the one that most people who've been around craft beer for a long time would call out. And this is the beer that they're probably most well known for, which is Moose Droll.
Yeah.
Classic American style brown ale. Haven't had it in a long time. I always just and this hasn't been the case forever, I don't think, but love the green can.
The cans are to me very odd because I bought basically a variety pack and I feel like they confused me. So I don't love it because they confused me.
Yeah.
Because they almost like have just like this solid color and you don't totally know exactly what it is until you start looking around the can per se. So, not my favorite, but I was really stoked because I picked those up when I was just in Michigan. And I have a fun story for when I was moving back from Oregon. I tried to drive like a more northern route, but it was in January. So that was dumb. But when I was going through Montana, I was like, I want to stop at Big Sky.
Yeah.
So it's like, and it got dark and I just hit a snowstorm, but I was like, I still gotta fucking stop, guys. I gotta fucking stop. And so, yeah, there was like my first experience with that. And that was probably like 2011-ish.
I remember the first time I had this beer was someone, I don't know if it was my dad or my uncle or somebody, had gotten like this subscription to like a beer of the month, 6-pack of the month, type of thing where you get a 6-pack. It was 2 of 3 from beers and it would be a specific brewery and they got this. And yeah, boy, this had to have been early 2000s. So whenever that was, but I can't remember if it always had this green can or not. I want to say it was even bottles back then, but I do not recall. But certainly a blast from the past beer. Nice little drinkable American brown ale, 5%. Ain't gonna kick that out of bed for eating crackers. Here we go. Let's get into the snacks. Spookies and spicies. What do you want to do first?
I want to torture you guys.
Oh, you want to go first? Okay, we'll go with that first. So Meg has brought for us. I'll let you do the talking. You tell us. You tell us what this thing's all about.
All right. So as you guys know, I wasn't here. I was living my life. So allergy driven in California just for a whole week. And so when I was in Joshua Tree and we were grabbing some booze and some firewood, as you do, I saw that, they had a bunch of Mexican snacks and all of them were like sweet and spicy. And I was like, these have to be like torture devices in some cultures.
They could be.
And so I brought back for us, I'm trying to think gomitas con chile. And they're basically a chili gummy. Yeah. So I brought you guys back chili gummy worms.
Yeah, they look like gummy worms, certainly. We
and
were
I feel
sniffing
like I was
them already.
being a little tame, but I also knew that I was going to have to try it. So I was also thinking of myself.
There looks like there's a red and an orange, and they're two-tone here. I'm going to grab this red one. It, I will say, doesn't smell that hot.
What color did you get?
Red and blue.
You guys are both doing the same colors. I'm going to go a different color.
Yeah.
I'm going to go orange.
It smells, we were saying, like red vines.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Almost. Oh God. Almost. This one right now immediately smelled like Play-Doh.
Oh, okay. I can get that
Like
as well.
I just immediately was like, oh, this is a Play-Doh smell. Okay.
It's very sweet. It's a little tart.
It was like spongy.
Yeah. The heat is there,
Man,
but it's
this is
very
some,
mild.
Like pussy ass snacks.
It's very mild. It's definitely not. I mean, yeah, there's a little bit of warmth.
Yeah.
But not a lot.
Do
Not
we
a
need
lot.
to bring back the hot sauce and maybe like dip it in that?
Yeah, it's no more than like
Actually,
Like
kind of
a-
enjoy it.
like a red fireball.
Yeah, I was gonna say it
Yeah.
just has like just a tiny bit of warmth.
Yeah.
And it almost does remind me more of like a eugenol warmth, like a cinnamon type of warmth.
Mhm.
There's a little tiny bit of heat that's creeping up, but just pretty mild, tasty though. Would happily sit there and eat the whole bag.
Oh, yeah, yeah.
probably.
Yeah, no, legit. I will do better next time, guys.
In terms of just the heat quota,
Yeah. For sure.
Our spooky is the Jelly Belly Monster Mash jelly bean mix here. So I'll just kind of, you guys can kind of help yourself.
Are these table snacks now?
They're table snacks now. Yeah. I can put them on the floor if you want. And you can just help yourself. I'll tell you what the flavors are here. We've got caramel corn, which is the kind of two-tone one there. We've got green apple, which is obviously the green. We've got grape soda, that classic Halloween flavor, grape
yeah.
soda. Jewel orange. Again, I don't see what is particularly Monster Mash about that, and wild blackberry, of course.
Is a jewel orange like? Also, yeah, okay. I was gonna say, is a jewel orange like one of those small oranges that you might get trick or treating? But then you said wild blackberry, and it's like, when the hell did you get any blackberry anything?
If somebody gave me an orange when I'm trick or treating, I'm gonna throw eggs at your fucking house. Like, don't be a piece of shit.
I feel like
Give me a
I've
Snickers
definitely
bar.
for sure gotten an
You're
orange.
probably right. I mean, I definitely remember getting apples.
Yeah.
I went caramel corn because I feel like that's the thing that is most. A popcorn ball
Mhm.
is
Yeah,
definitely
I'm into
something
that caramel
that
corn.
we would get from one particular house growing up that we always looked forward to because they were
Mhm.
homemade
Mhm.
popcorn balls, and the woman who would give them to us was a substitute teacher at our school.
Oh, okay.
And we knew, so it wasn't like some weirdo giving you some homemade snack. Like
Yeah,
we
yeah.
knew she was. And they were so freaking good. Yeah, it just tastes like the buttered popcorn
Mm,
Mhm.
jelly bean, but maybe a little bit of kind of caramely kind of
Yeah.
character
Okay.
added to it.
yeah,
But I'm a
I
fan of
see.
the buttered popcorn, the diacetyl jelly bean.
Mm-hmm.
I'm a fan
Yeah.
of it.
I don't hate any
Flaw
of these
in beer.
Yeah.
Flaw in beer, but good as a jelly
I mean,
belly.
I drink Pilsner Urquell. I mean, you look around. I'm a huge Pilsner Urquell fan.
Wait,
there's
can I
there's
have this?
decidedly a significant amount of diacetyl in that beer. So I'm a Czech beer boy. I like my diacetyl. All
I'm a
right.
Czech beer boy. I don't know why. This is probably one of my least favorite green apple flavors.
Hmm.
Yeah, I just had one as well. I'm not crazy about it.
It's like I want it to be more tart,
Mm.
and it has this like sweetness that I'm like just doesn't come off right. I don't know how you guys feel about it.
No, I'm not a big fan of it as well.
Which also, it's
I
weird that they wouldn't make it a caramel green apple.
Yeah, Try harder,
if
Jelly Belly.
if they did do a caramel green apple, that could have worked. If they
Mhm.
would have said that, but
Yeah.
it doesn't say that.
no, try harder, Jelly Belly. Grape soda, orange, and blackberry have literally nothing to do with Halloween, guys. The spookies and the spicies, not our strongest showing in
It's
terms
a
of
turd
spookies
show
as well
for
as spices.
for
Turd
spicy.
show, guys. Shut it off. Make a good decision. Do something else with your time. No, let's jump into these. Actually, before I do that, before I forget. Those of you, I started out by thanking everyone who helped us choose our topic for this month's Showdown episode. If you care to do that, or if you want to suggest topics, or if you want to suggest mini-sode ideas, or if you want to just reach out and, I don't know, send us something, or just send us a nice note, or an ignorant, rude note. That's fine too.
Yeah, that's fine.
Yeah, that's all right. Send it to us at Halloween is Forever on Instagram, at Hallow Forever on Twitter, Halloween is Forever podcast on the Facebook page, at Hallow Forever, at Halloween is Forever pod,
You got it.
on the goddamn TikToks, or of course Halloween is Forever pod at gmail.com if you want to send us one of those old-fashioned emails. That's become a strange catchphrase. I don't know why. So follow us on there for spooky wookie content and all that sort of stuff. Okay. all the pleasantries are behind us, you motherfuckers. We're done with the spookies. We're done with the spices.
He's ready to
We're
throw
done
down
with
today.
the birds.
He's got a, he feels pent up. He's angry.
I am.
Why are you
repressed.
enabling this behavior?
I'm not saying it's going to win him anything. I'm just saying I understand why.
Let's be clear.
Repressed, guys.
He got dumped on.
It was inflicted
You're being too nice
upon
right
me.
now, Steve.
The roulette wheel
we
took
know
a
how
big
ruthless this motherfucker
steamy
is.
shit on me in October. So let's jump into the movies. Steve's first.
Yes.
I don't know why I'm looking at my notes like I'm
I
going
don't,
first.
I don't know. You can look at your notes on my movie, but
I'm just totally going to start. I'm just going to have Harry Belafonte playing in my head the entire fucking night.
good.
I listened to it on the way over
Highly
here.
deadly black tarantula. I love that.
Yeah.
That's one of my favorite scenes in the movie.
Damn!
Unfortunately, that guy is a pedophile.
Yeah.
Oh, I
Yeah.
didn't know that. Bummer, I'm
is
done.
So,
Oh,
Meg is so
fuck.
disappointed by that.
It ruins a lot of movies to know that.
Yeah, because he's in a lot of stuff.
Yeah.
Really?
Jeffrey,
Oh,
what's
yeah.
his name?
Jeffrey Wright, I believe. Or
Is that right? Jeffrey something or other. We'll get to
yeah,
it.
it's Jeffrey something or other.
Yeah.
I kind of blocked that, but also that ruined Ravenous for me, which is another one of
Yeah.
my favorite movies.
Yeah, he's
God
in a
damn it.
lot
Wait,
of stuff.
I think we need to distinguish Harry Belafonte's
No,
the
no,
pedophile.
no,
no, no,
Okay,
no, no, no.
That's who I thought we
No,
were
no, no.
talking
No,
about.
no.
You're talking about someone in Beetlejuice.
Yeah, we're talking
the
Okay, cool.
guy who does
You
the
lose.
the Jeffrey Jones.
Jeffrey Jones. Okay.
who plays Lydia's dad.
Oh yeah, Jeffrey.
Charles.
Oh yeah.
Oh, yeah,
that
no,
dude.
Jeffrey
He
Wright's
is
a different-
Definitely giving off a lot of creepy vibes perpetually.
Well,
So in
always.
real life, pedophile.
Yeah.
Okay,
I
I'm,
guess
not, I'm
in
not as
jail?
upset about that.
I don't think he's in jail anymore. But
Um,
He should be.
let's get into Steve's movie. The
Yes.
floor is yours.
so for anybody who doesn't remember, our topic this month is haunted houses, and I picked Beetlejuice because it's a
Motherfucker.
haunted house movie.
Mhm.
Everything about it is haunted house. They probably say haunted house maybe 4 or 5 times in the movie. So yeah, it's a great example. It's also a great movie.
I had to find out about our picks by listening to the episode, but I mean, I guess that was by choice anyway.
Mm-hmm.
But I was, the moment I started hearing both of you guys going back and forth, I'm like, no, why is this happening? No,
Meg
stop
wasn't there
this.
to be part of the conversation.
Line,
Meg,
line,
no one asked
stop.
you to go eat mushrooms in the desert.
These are the things you give up.
Literally, the
for
moment I heard
vacation.
you say Beetlejuice, I was like, motherfucker. Literally. I said
So-
that out loud.
Yes, I wound up choosing Beetlejuice after I was told I couldn't do The Shining because it was a hotel and not a domicile. So I chose Beetlejuice from 1998 or
If I was
1988.
here, I
88,
probably
yeah.
would have
Yeah.
argued Shining, though. I would have said it was okay.
But
I'm not going to lie.
I don't know.
Anyways.
I was just being a dick on that because it's just such a big movie that you can't compete against. That's the only reason why I was doing it.
Yeah.
But
I'm
I
just
agree.
saying, I would have,
Yeah.
I would have had the argument too.
In a future event, and we can discuss this, but I think there needs to be maybe some off-limit movies. And I think The
Potentially.
Shining is one of them. And I think if we're doing like a space alien
Unless we're
movie,
doing like a Stephen King.
right,
Yeah.
and then maybe we go back to the roulette wheel to
Yeah,
decide
yeah.
that.
potentially.
But maybe actually put good ones on there.
Sure.
there were good ones on.
Or
on the
or we
Carpenter
could just
one.
do it and be like only pick 3 or have 4, but
Mhm.
like really good ones.
Well, so-
you know what I mean?
Yeah, we'll see about that in the future.
Anywho.
But for now, we're talking about Beetlejuice, the
It's
1988 classic, directed by Tim Burton,
Mhm.
starring Gina Davis and Alec Baldwin, and of course, hometown hero Michael Keaton.
Yes, indeed. He is, and don't forget Catherine O'Hara.
Oh yeah, Catherine O'Hara's in it. You have Winona Ryder.
Yeah.
Robert
Lot of names.
Goulet.
Lot of
Goulet
names.
for like 2 scenes, which is great.
I love our Robert Goulet. Throw it in there.
There's another actor in this movie that you're not going to recognize his name,
Mhm.
but Brian, you'll recognize him when I tell you who he is. His name is Carmen Philpe,
Okay.
and he plays the kind of messenger guy that's on the clothesline when they go
Oh.
to the afterlife,
Oh, okay.
Mhm.
and he slips through the side.
He,
So-
he's the civil servant that apparently I always assumed he threw himself in front of a bus or something.
Possibly,
Yeah.
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 More than likely, that's a joke that we can talk about in a minute. But
Yeah.
he in that very same year of 1988, he plays Reverend P. Sayers in Halloween 4.
Oh, beautiful. That classic. Classic of the genre, Halloween 4. I actually almost put the VHS in the other night and then went to 6. I don't know why. I was looking for, I don't know, self-flagellation. I don't know.
I don't know. But yeah, he's the one that picks up Loomis off the side of the road and drives him into town.
He's also Blue in Old School.
That is not correct.
No?
Nope, that's a completely different actor, and I know that because I've made the same mistake, and I looked it up.
Oh.
But yeah, to start the film, we open up with Alec Baldwin's character Adam and Gina Davis. They're in their home in Connecticut, and they're just living a simple small town life, and they're doing a staycation so they can spruce up their home and just take a vacation from. What you learn is they own the hardware and kind of general store in town.
Mm-hmm.
So yeah, they're in and out of the town, just trying to avoid people. They have a realtor hounding them to sell their house.
Which is it Gina Davis's sister? They kind of take it that is the realtor.
I'm not sure.
Because at some point later on, which I never picked up on this before, but as they're because when she comes later and gives Lydia the skeleton key, she's like, "Did you know them?" She was like, "Yeah, they were family. I was devastated."
Oh, I just felt like she was saying that because she's a realtor and that's the kind of shit they say.
Maybe you might be right.
Yeah.
You might be right.
Yeah.
Yeah, I just feel like that's the kind of thing that she would say to like get in with the next owners.
Yeah.
Because she was also saying that like she had like interior design experience and
That's true.
Yeah. But yeah, for those of you who haven't seen the movie, I don't know who hasn't seen this movie. If you haven't, what's the matter with you?
Yeah,
You must be younger.
Legit.
And that's okay. It's
Yeah.
okay to be younger and not see this.
Do yourself a damn favor though,
Right.
and go watch Beetlejuice. Let's be honest.
You should have
they're
watched it before you heard this
Yeah,
episode.
I'm like,
Yeah.
if they listen to this episode or this show, then yeah, like what are you doing? Like
Right.
you have to be into horror and stuff.
Yeah. But freak accident, Alec Baldwin and Gina Davis go over a bridge and they die. And
They're
then,
murdered by a dog.
More or less, yeah. That dog, cold-blooded kills them.
Yeah.
Like he lures them into a trap
Yeah.
Come to me.
and then, dumps
Rough,
them into
rough.
the river.
As they're dangling, yeah, he is the straw that breaks the camel's back, kind of in reverse, where he jumps off the board and then they fall
Yeah.
plummet to
Yeah.
their death.
I mean, Adam even pleads for his life and says, no, don't move. But the dog's like,
Fuck you.
double guns.
Yeah.
Jumps off the board, sends him into the drink.
Right.
It's not it's not apparent at first, but they show back up at their house and they're sopping wet, so it's obvious that they'd been in the river. But then things get a little more spooky, a little more creepy, and they begin to understand that, oh, we're cold, we're unnaturally cold, we're not warming up. Oh, and now here's this handbook called The Handbook for the Recently Deceased.
Mm-hmm.
Uh-oh, I think we're
Classic.
dead.
Yeah. And I love this. And I think I might have heard this on another podcast or read it somewhere, but that comment that Gina Davis makes about her arm,
Mhm.
she's like, "How's your arm?" And he's like, "Oh, it feels frozen," or
Yeah.
whatever. I read somewhere, or heard somewhere, I don't remember what exactly, but their death scene was originally a lot more grisly,
Oh.
and her arm
Mm.
was cut off or ripped off in some
Oh.
capacity, and then they
Okay.
kept that line in for whatever reason.
Yeah.
That's
But-
interesting.
Yeah, interesting.
So
Yeah, I
it's
mean,
as if,
just,
like it's like wasn't supposed to be there, and so it's like there but not. Okay,
Right.
okay,
right, yeah.
all right,
it's
all right,
it's
I'm
still
getting
like,
it.
yeah, it's still an easy allusion to like being injured in a car crash. But yeah, whatever was cut out may have been.
And I mean, it can still make sense though in a way because they're fucking dead. No one would think twice of it.
Yeah.
Right.
You know.
Yeah, but and it's interesting that was cut, and it probably just because the scene may have not played like as high tone as the rest of the movie,
Mhm.
but the rest of the movie has some real dark, like intense imagery.
Sure.
I feel like this movie's rated PG, right?
Yeah.
So this is one of those movies that's on the cusp of it's on the
It's
cusp.
firmly PG.
It's firmly PG. Well, Michael Keaton says fuck in it.
That's true. There is one fuck.
Yeah, there's one fuck, and then there's some
Nice fucking tree or
yeah,
whatever.
yeah, nice fucking model.
Wait,
He
or
kicks
model.
it over.
Yeah, and it's when because
Yeah.
you don't get that on the old freeform version.
Right.
Right.
I feel like what I would really like to do is just see Michael Keaton like today just dress up as Beetlejuice and just like say.
Well, they
those,
keep talking
like,
about
classic-
doing Beetlejuice too.
I
but
know.
No,
and
I don't want it. I don't want it.
I do want it. I'd be into it.
I'd be all over for it. I mean,
Yeah.
yes,
I mean,
I
I'd
get
obviously
it.
watch it, but I don't want it.
I might be disappointed, but yeah.
I want something original.
It would have to be Tim Burton again. It would have to, yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's just this is such a purely Tim Burton. I mean, it's just dripping with Tim Burton
Yeah.
things,
Yeah.
from the imagery to the Danny Elfman, score and
Right.
all that.
The other thing is that, like, a lot of the imagery is pretty intense.
Yeah, there's some. There's definitely some stuff.
Yeah. Like you have like allusions to suicide, as we already mentioned.
Yeah.
So
Mhm.
to move the story a little forward, while they're dead, they find themselves going in and out of the house, but they find that the house is a boundary.
Mm-hmm.
They get transported to Saturn with
Yeah.
the ringworms of Saturn, I guess, or the sandworms of Saturn.
sandworms, yeah.
So that becomes a boundary, and every time they move to that boundary, time actually advances a lot faster.
Right.
Because of that, they find themselves suddenly beset by New York yuppies, which was a thing of the 80s.
Yeah.
And the yuppies who had been begging to put an offer on the house earlier in the film have now been able to just outright buy it.
Right.
And that yuppie family is Catherine O'Hara and Jeffrey Jones, the Dietzes, and they move in with their daughter Lydia.
I have to say, like, I love Catherine O'Hara.
Yeah, she's
Like,
so
I
fucking
just
great.
I fucking love her.
Yeah, she's the best.
She's so funny. She is absolutely one of those people you could just listen to read the phone book. I think we talked about
Mhm.
Robert Forrester is going to
Yeah.
be in that in
Yeah.
last episode, and she is that for me.
Yeah.
But it's as a like I just am absolutely in love with her. I love her in everything she's in. But as a kid, the person that you immediately gravitated towards was Lydia.
Oh, yeah,
fuck
of
yeah.
course. Yeah.
Like my crush on Lydia Dietz as a child was only rivaled by Christina Ricci and Alex Mack from The Secret World of Alex Mack. Really, that's the only two. It was right up there.
Those are good choices. Yeah.
Gadget and Kelly Bundy. And
Yeah, as a spooky little weird kid, it was
Right.
impossible not to.
The new family has moved in, and so Adam and Barbara take it upon themselves to try to scare the Dietzes out of the home.
Yeah.
Because they still feel it's their home, they're still living there. They haven't made it all the way through the handbook yet, but they understand that they have to be there for 125 years. That's your kind of sentence as a ghost. So yeah, you get a lot of intense imagery through that. One of the first ones is Gina Davis's character Barbara hanging in a closet,
Mm-hmm.
and then she rips her face off,
Yeah.
and then her
Mhm.
eyes come bugging out.
Such
Yeah.
a great
Like,
effect.
Yeah.
It's such a great effect, and it's
Yeah.
such a horror movie haunted house thing.
Mm-hmm.
But because the Dietzes can't see it,
Yeah.
they just push past it. Like
Mhm.
it doesn't affect them.
Right.
hmm
Yeah, and they're like, "Oh my gosh!" And then they're actually outraged by the size of the closet. Or
Right.
whatever. It's a great gag.
It's a great gag.
Yeah, it was good.
Then you have a couple more of these, and it becomes apparent that the Maitlands can't scare out the Dietzes. So they get farther into the book, and the book tells them to draw a door, and the door leads them into the afterlife. And basically, the afterlife is a waiting room.
It's like the DMV.
I
Yeah,
kind
it's
of
the
love
DMV.
that, like, just the entire vibe of that room and that
That is
space.
my
You're
favorite
just
scenes.
like,
Yeah.
they're just, definitely.
And
Yeah.
all the
That's
like
great.
people who have been killed in different ways, and you can clearly see like there's a guy who got eaten by a shark.
Yeah.
There's
like death by misadventure is a lot of people in there.
yeah. There's like a guy who's clearly like some sort of like explorer type of guy. He's got his head shrunken or whatever.
Yeah.
There's there's a woman who was clearly there for she was like a magician's assistant that's been cut in
Yeah.
half.
Yeah. Yep.
So many cool images.
Yeah. It's
Is
a lot
that
of
some big whoops.
Yeah.
big whoops. Yeah.
Yeah.
Saw isn't actually supposed to go through. But yeah, it's a lot of great imagery that doesn't need explanation. It's just you understand it immediately.
Mhm.
Then there's a gag of the woman at the receptionist desk. She talks about how if she knew what death was, she wouldn't have had her accident, and
Right.
then shows her slashed wrists.
Yeah.
Which that's
Mhm.
pretty gruesome.
It's pretty dark.
Yeah, but
And-
then later in the film, Otho, who is the interior decorator for the Dietzes, mentions people who commit suicide go and work as civil servants in the afterlife.
He said it as like a joke, but it's true.
Right,
You know
yeah.
what I mean?
It's just the thing that he heard in his like travels around
because
the world.
he talks about how he's like a paranormal expert. He's
Right.
a little bit of like a fancies himself a jack of all trades kind of guy.
Right.
Such an underappreciated character, by the way.
Yeah.
Otho is so fucking funny.
He's great, and he's like, but he's obviously that kind of highfalutin, like bougie flake.
grifter kind of guy too.
Yeah. He's a grifter flake that just has put his hands in everything and just gloms on the people, and
He makes a living by knowing people,
Right,
basically,
yeah,
in New
yeah.
York City. Yeah.
and like going through part of the first renovation is him taking Catherine O'Hara through the house, and they're doing renovations and they're marking off walls for painting or destruction.
Yeah.
And she throws up like, oh, this room should be mauve.
Mm-hmm.
And just, that super grifter mentality pops in. He's like, oh, you completely had my mind read. And
Yeah.
it's just like,
most clients can't read my mind.
yeah,
like
most
that.
clients can't read
kind
my mind
of
like that.
flattering
Yeah,
her and
Yeah.
building her up. Yeah.
yeah. So he's a total grifter. But yeah, moving out of that, the Maitlands are in the afterlife. You get all of these great scenes of just great set design, great spooky interiors, as well as like there's skeletons at typing, and there's the guy that we mentioned up on the hooks flying through the slots in the walls.
Yeah.
And then they meet their caseworker, because it's essentially a government office of some sort.
Right.
Mhm.
They meet their caseworker Juno, and she tells them all about like, don't get involved with Beetlejuice,
Right.
who has been advertising his services as a freelance bioexorcist to them.
Yeah. And she's like, he was apparently a protege of hers in
Mhm.
some capacity. So she knows how much of like a piece of shit he is or whatever. But
Yeah. The one thing is she just disappears when she asks why. Or like they both ask, why can't we?
yeah.
And then she just disappears.
Yeah.
She's like, don't do it.
Yeah.
Why? Bye.
He's unorthodox. She just it's very
Mhm.
vague in terms of like what the issue with him is. I love that like the scariest thing, and there's a parallel with Meg's movie, which we haven't gotten to yet,
Mhm.
but like the thing you're most scared of is the bureaucracy. You know what I mean? Like they're dead, right?
Right.
The Maitlands
Yeah.
are dead. There's
Yeah.
nothing's wrong's going to happen to them. Like what's
Mhm.
Beetlejuice going to do? Kill them? You know
Right,
what I
right.
mean?
Yeah.
You are worried that about them. You are constantly, whether it be the manual or whatever, like you're getting their secondhand anxiety from having to deal with all this paperwork and bureaucracy and shit like that.
Yeah. Like their second life is full of basically a lot of the fears and just kind of upsetting things that they felt in their real life, because it would
Yeah.
just be bureaucracy, but then also this early form of gentrification of yuppies moving to the suburbs
Right.
and renovating towns and taking over spots. And then there's also kind of a little bit of a through line of like, it's mentioned early on about them not having a family. And
Sorry, I'm seductively eating gummy worms.
I don't know
I
how to
was
call
gonna
it
do it.
seductive.
I
Is
was
that
gonna-
your
I was gonna do it
seductive
way-
face? Is that your seductive face?
No, I
'Cause
was
I'm
gonna
sorry, Kate.
I was gonna do it way more seductively, and then I bailed because I was like, I don't want to interrupt. But then I interrupted way worse. Anyway.
Yeah, it was way worse.
yeah.
It was way worse.
I was gonna do like I was feeding myself grapes kind of thing.
Yeah.
I bailed on the gag before I even did it.
But it's mentioned early on about them not having a family, and that they should sell the house to somebody with a family.
Right.
So it's this idea of like they kind of want kids, but they haven't been
It
able
was
to
a bit
have
of a
kids.
sore subject almost type of thing.
Right.
Yeah.
And then a family moves in who has a kid, and they completely neglect Lydia.
Yes.
And so it's just kind of like a parallel to their life of something that would be upsetting to them.
Hmm.
After they come back from the afterlife, it's 3 months later. So the house has been completely transformed to the way the Dietzes want it.
Yeah.
And
And for them, it was like an hour.
Right.
But in reality, it was
Yeah.
3 months.
and it's
Right.
now become like their worst nightmare. It's full of the sculptures
Right.
and
The paint in the hallway
Yeah.
is like that room that's in every haunted house.
yeah.
That's like the flecked, white room, or I mean, sorry, black light room.
Yeah, yeah.
Mhm.
You know, where
It's like primer gray with flecks of black that just
it's that room where they stand up against the wall. You know what I mean? Like every haunted house has that room where somebody wears a full suit that is the same as the wall and jump out. Yeah, it reminds me of that.
Yeah, I feel like for me, like even just seeing the sculptures, I'm like, something's gonna happen there. Like, you know, like when you're initially watching this movie, it's just, you're just like, something's gonna happen with all these fucking sculptures. They're fucking creepy as shit. Like it's just like they're almost creating their own haunted house.
Pretty much, yeah. And even like an early jump scare is one of the sculptures when it's being moved into the house.
Oh yeah,
it busts through a window while Charles is trying to make tea. It just blasts through the window.
Yeah.
So, but after the Maitlands come back from the afterlife, they're actually seen by Lydia, and it becomes more apparent for her that the house may be haunted, and she tries to take photos of Adam and Barbara after they throw sheets on themselves and try to do some classic ghosting.
Cutting holes in sheets.
Yeah. It doesn't really go well. They're even though they were told by Juno that they have to exercise the Dietzes themselves, they're still just don't have the hang of it. And they're not scaring anybody. Lydia takes photographs of them and can see that the sheets had no legs, but she approaches them anyway. They start to form a little bit of a bond, because again, she's someone who's neglected and weird, and she's also the only person who can see them and acknowledge it as their existence.
Which they never really explain aside from the classic line, I too am strange and unusual. Yeah. There's really no other reason why she can see them.
Yeah, and I feel like that's probably just like one of these unsaid things where it's like when you're just open to the idea of something.
Are more susceptible to that.
Yeah,
that's how I took it too.
Yeah, she's just open to the idea. But yeah, still can't get the Dietzes out, so they finally do call upon Beetlejuice, and that's when you get Michael Keaton bursting out of the grave.
Hey guys.
He's a treasure. He's a treasure. He's a fucking treasure. And the fact that so many of those scenes are improvised is so wild.
Yeah.
Just like I read, and again, this might have been from another podcast or I read it somewhere. I don't remember exactly, but I recall them talking about how he was essentially trying to do like an imitation of a used car salesman.
Oh yeah, absolutely.
He had seen like on TV as a child or whatever, and he was basically doing that character.
Oh yeah,
and he's an improv guy. Like he's he could do this all day.
Yeah.
It was just so he's so great.
Yeah, and it's definitely like reinforced because he has like that big neon sign above the grave, and then just the way he's like, "What do I got to do to get you into it?"
Yeah, it's a used car salesman all the way kind of thing.
Yeah. But
I'll chew on a dog.
Yeah. Yeah.
Stupid.
Yeah, the whole rodeo commercial.
That is maybe my single favorite scene is that commercial that they see on the TV like right off the bat. It's just so funny.
Yeah. But it becomes very apparent that he's a slime ball and he can't be trusted either because like the whole time that he's trying to talk Adam into accepting his services, he's also like looking up Gina Davis's skirt and like sexually harassing her.
Yes.
It becomes
he's a real scumbag.
Yeah, he's a piece of shit. And that becomes very clear. So
all normal car salesman things.
Yeah.
Pretty much.
Pretty much, yeah. It's just all car salesmen turned up to 11.
Yeah.
But yeah, they deny his services. They still can't get the Dietzes out. They try like one last grab with this dinner party that they're having. And I don't know about you, but like when I was a kid, that scene actually was kind of scary.
The dinner party scene wasn't scary to me, but the scene with the snake on the stairs was definitely scary to me as a kid.
I was like, we're talking about like versus like, when we watch this movie, because it's like been revisited, but like the initial, like I actually thought the dinner scene was kind of scary when I was a kid. You know, like I thought it was pretty spooky.
Yeah, I think it's just because of the sudden turn, because again, Meg already referenced it, but it starts with the Deo song, which is such a
Deo!
It's such an upbeat song. It's up there with the Beach Boys of things you remember.
Yeah.
Sorry guys.
Yeah. So
let me just scream at you.
You have people doing a dance. They're being funny. It's amusing, and then just out of nowhere, the scary shrimp hands pop out of the bowls and like grab them by their face. Just the suddenness of that is.
It's almost like fun for a minute, and then it's like, fuck you.
No fun.
No fun.
Yeah. The shrimp hands, they have shrimp cocktails in front of them, right? And all of a sudden, like these hands jump out and shove them backwards kind of thing. But it's such every time I see that that scene, I think of like the difficulty of acting simultaneously into it
Mhm.
and the physical activity of like being into the dance, but also
Mhm.
peppering in expressions of confusion and
Yeah,
That's a
yeah.
good
Fear
point. Yeah, that
is
that
such
is
a hard
yeah,
act. Like, I'm not an actor, but
Right.
like I got to assume that's so hard.
yeah.
Because it's not like Jeffrey Jones and Catherine O'Hara do it pretty well, and then the other woman who's at the party, she's like somebody's
She's like Otho's date kind of thing.
Yeah.
not even Otho's date, but the other woman.
Oh, you're talking about the big business guy's wife?
Yeah.
Yeah.
She has a lot of like expressions of fear, like because like she's like bouncing her ass in the air and she's looking over her shoulder like, why?
Yeah, terrified. Yeah,
Yeah.
she's great too. Everyone in that scene, like they all just nail this like between like because the whole idea is they're under this spell and they're kind of coming in and out of it and they
Mhm.
obviously can't control their bodies, but they can kind of control their expressions and their face come and go.
Right, yeah.
It's just such a I would be I would credit that to Tim Burton's directing too, because they're
Right.
all doing the same thing.
Yeah.
It's not just like one of them is nailing that. They're clearly all have been directed.
Yeah, they're all on the same page.
to
of-
pepper in this fear on their face thing.
Yeah.
Just so well done.
Yeah.
Great. Such a fucking iconic scene.
Yeah, it's a great scene. Unfortunately, that also doesn't work in getting the Dietz and their friends out.
Yeah, they love it.
It
They think it's fantastic.
Yeah, it brings them in even more, and that's
Yeah,
when
yeah.
Otho starts revealing his paranormal life.
Yeah, right.
It goes further, and that's when you get the snake scene after
Mhm.
that,
Mhm.
because then Beetlejuice comes back and as a snake monster attacks the family and like
Right.
in a vicious, violent way that completely sets off Lydia because she thinks that it's the Maitlands doing it.
Right.
She doesn't know about Beetlejuice at this moment.
Mhm. I do like that they throw Charles off the second floor balcony just onto the ground. And then
Yeah.
afterwards they're like, you could have hurt someone.
Right.
And it's like, I'm pretty sure you broke that guy's spine.
Yeah. Yeah, that's a spinal fracture for him. They send Otho down the stairs
Yeah.
and just like that probably would have been a broken neck as well.
Yeah. They're like, oh man, you could have really injured someone.
Yeah.
Like, I'm pretty sure he murdered 2 people.
Yeah, you really try to attempt murder on them. But you get attention and split, so they have to rebuild their relationship with Lydia, but they also don't want to give up the house. They don't know what to do.
Mhm.
And then that's when Robert Goulet's character
Yeah.
and his wife
Goulet.
are
I don't
summoned
know
to the
why
house.
every time I hear his name, I just have to be like, Robin Goulet.
Robert Goulet.
And this is
I just think about that ram. He's just looking at that ram. Quick staring contest, me and you now. Such a funny skit.
So dumb.
But yeah, also during that period, they move out the model town from the attic.
Mm-hmm.
They take Otho finds the handbook for the recently deceased and starts thumbing through it. And the whole thing they want to do is they want to impress Robert Goulet with the summoning of the ghosts.
Did you
Right.
just call him Robert
I-
Goulet?
I did. I did.
Okay, that's fine.
It's like Dracula's.
Yeah,
Robert
Dracula's.
Goulet's. Dracula's.
Yeah. They want
Giant Eagles.
John Eagles.
John
Yeah.
Nichols.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Robert
You're
Goulet.
so Yenzer, man.
Saw Robert Goulet's down Giant Eagle Deli.
Yeah. Robert Goulet is getting some of that Isley chip chalk. But yeah, they want to impress Robert Goulet. They want to summon the ghosts, and hopefully that will get him to buy into the town because he is Charles's former boss.
Yeah, that's kind of how I took it.
Yeah, Charles had some sort of like mental breakdown, and which is why he's moved his family to Connecticut.
Mhm.
But he can't stop trying to land develop. So he tries to get Robert Goulet in on it. They have to impress him with ghosts. Otho finds a thing in the handbook to bring ghosts.
Kind of like this existence where, hey, I want to impress you with ghosts. You know,
Yeah.
like I want to live in that
That's a
world
great
where
lever to
that's
be
like
able to
the
pull,
leverage.
Right.
Like I want to live in that world.
I am confused though by they're on board, right? They just
Yeah.
saw this whole, ghostly situation or whatever. Lydia says, guys, they're not going to come downstairs. They tried to scare you. You weren't scared. They're
Mhm.
mad. They're not going to come downstairs. so they're like, and this was before Robert Goulet comes up here. This is when Catherine O'Hara's agent is there.
Mhm.
Right.
And they're like, oh, the ghosts won't come downstairs. Not only are we out, but fuck you, we're burning bridges too. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
Like, you were psyched about this a second ago, but in this moment, the ghost won't come downstairs. So fuck you, you're a flake, I'm out. You know what I
Yeah.
mean? It's such a weird turn for that character.
Yeah, it's weird that they would try to just bail.
Yeah.
But and I also feel like it sucks that they did, because you don't get enough of Beetlejuice.
Yeah.
There could have been more of him, like, putting forth some really scary stuff to scare off the agent, scare off Otho's
Yeah.
acquaintance.
Mhm.
Yeah. Michael Keaton is not on screen enough. I mean, you know, he's on screen a decent amount, but he's not, like, for how just great that character
Mhm.
is. And for the fact that it's literally the name of the movie, like, there's definitely, like, wish he was on screen more, right?
Yeah, he doesn't get enough screen time, but he gets a whole cartoon later, so that's fine.
That's true. Which I
True.
fucking love the cartoon as
Yeah.
I was all about it.
I mean, the character does. Michael Keaton wasn't the voice, I don't think.
No.
I don't think
Yeah.
he was.
But yeah, they summon the Maitlands with their janky, half understood summoning process, and whatever it is, it doesn't necessarily kill them, but it brings them to a state of undeath
Mm-hmm.
that they're
They're kind of decaying
Yeah.
in the afterlife a bit.
they're decaying in the afterlife, like they're in some weird other plane, because
Mhm.
you can't hear them speak,
Mm-hmm.
but you can see them, and it's just like, they're possibly suffering what was alluded to before when their first trip to the afterlife.
Right.
The janitor shows them this closet of, the exorcised dead.
It's like death for the dead or
Yeah.
whatever he says, right?
Yeah, and just like, you have to live in this closet now.
Mhm.
But they're decaying, they're obviously dying and in some sort of pain, so Lydia calls upon Beetlejuice,
Right.
and that's when he really starts getting down with his ghost of the most host.
And,
Yeah.
and he also says basically, like, kind of blackmails her into, like, you have to marry me
Mhm.
because
Yeah.
that's how I'm going to get out of this, like, weird purgatory situation.
Right.
I'm in.
Mhm.
Right. Which earlier Lydia was already kind of reserved herself to suicide.
Mhm.
Yeah, she was
Yeah.
telling the Maitlands how she wanted to be dead too. and
Right.
all
Yeah.
that, right.
Yeah, she wanted to be dead, and then she was writing a suicide note that was, like, in a very maudlin way, but also funny because she's constantly revising and crossing out.
Yeah, just to be, like, dramatic,
Right.
more
Super
dramatic,
dramatic,
utterly
yes.
alone.
Yeah, I am utterly alone, and
Yeah.
I will have jumped, cross out, plummeted
Yeah.
into the river. But yeah, so she agrees to this.
I feel like
these
that almost like
terms.
makes you feel like less bad for her for being like, I hate my life. Like, I mean, you clearly, I'm like, you're a rich bitch. Like, I get it.
They
It
always
comes with
they
a lot of
defi-
shitty stuff, but you know what?
they
Wait.
definitely take a lot of serious topics, very, let's say, flippantly, because that's just the tone of the movie. It's
Right.
not,
Sure,
I'm not,
yeah,
you know what
yeah,
I
I
mean?
agree.
But yeah,
Yeah, I mean, yeah, they've already been flippant with suicide and death and
Mhm.
every other thing. Like, you have a whole bus crash of football players
Oh yeah,
who are just like, dopey to their existence.
Mhm.
right.
But yeah, Beetlejuice comes. He exercises Robert Goulet very quickly through the ceiling
Mhm.
in a carnival style fashion,
Yeah,
and it's on with the wedding. And then that's when, because the incantation or whatever spell that Otho is reciting is given up, it gives the Maitlands power back, and they triumph as they say the name Beetlejuice 3 more times.
Mhm.
Mm-hmm.
Although I don't think they actually get through it, because before they can say Beetlejuice 3 times, Barbara is transported back to Saturn,
yeah,
and she rides the sandworm that she had already punched in the face
yeah.
through the
I just,
ceiling
like,
and swallows
Push him in the
Beetlejuice up.
face.
Yeah, and she's riding it, and then 1 second later, she's just standing on the floor as it eats Beetlejuice. It's it's a bit of a janky wrap up,
A little bit.
Mhm.
because yeah, she's riding the sandworm. It crashes through the house. It eats Beetlejuice, and then next, like, smash cut, she's just standing beside, like,
Mm.
Lydia,
Yeah.
just
Yeah.
standing there.
Yeah.
So
that whole sandworm thing is like this practical Harryhausen thing.
It's stop motion claymation type of thing. Yeah.
Yeah. The scene of her jumping off the sandworm was probably
Maybe a little
lot to animate.
janky or something, or
A
just
lot
they
to
couldn't
animate.
make it work right.
Yeah. But yeah, otherwise, you get a good spooky movie.
Mm.
You get some
Just
alternate.
so spooky.
Yeah.
I feel like I have to say it with a shoulder shrug,
Yeah.
because it's not. But like for the most part, I still am team camp. It can work.
Yes. It
Brian,
is-
did you change your vote? Did you change your like tone of this? Because you were like,
No,
this is not a horror movie.
So here's the thing. I love Beetlejuice. I
Yeah.
love this movie.
Absolutely.
Fantastic movie. I've seen it 100 times. I've been watching it since I was a kid. Love this movie. It's definitely not a horror movie. It's a haunted house movie. I will give you that. There's no arguing it is a haunted house movie. It's not.
Brian.
What? You don't think it's a haunted house movie?
No, I was just hoping you would just go find it right in that tail.
But it is it's a haunted house.
right.
It's literally about haunting someone out of a house.
Yes,
So
very
like,
much so.
I
Yes.
absolutely agree. It's a haunted house movie. It's not a horror movie.
Okay.
It is a horror. If it's a horror movie,
It would be a horror comedy, and almost in my opinion.
it's not even a horror comedy.
I mean, it's like almost on this plane of like almost.
If it's a horror comedy, Harry Potter's a horror comedy.
What?
No.
Yes.
I think
Yes.
those are too extremes. That's too
No,
extreme.
there's tons of fantasy horror things in Harry Potter, monsters and all, witchcraft. I mean, the whole fucking things are witches, right? So my point is, if it's played,
I don't think Harry Potter is a comedy.
Never has.
I don't know.
You get what I'm saying? Yeah, it's more of a fantasy type of thing. But I would say this is on par. It's a classic. It's a very spooky Halloween-esque movie. It obviously doesn't happen at Halloween, but it's a horror movie in the way Hocus Pocus is a horror movie. I mean, they're absolutely on the same page.
I think that's fair. I think that's a fair statement. I agree with that.
So
because it's like, yeah, I agree.
It's a great movie. I love it. It's a spooky family comedy. I would say. It's not. So you had mentioned before, it's PG-13. I would say something like. I mean, it's certainly not nearly as scary as Poltergeist.
No.
And Poltergeist is what I think of as the upper edge of PG-13.
Yeah. I mean, they're pretty close. And I think it's just, I mean, that whole MPAA rating is an arbitrary thing to begin with.
Yeah, we
don't
don't
have to-
horror based on like these ratings too. Is that like what you're thinking about?
No, because my point is like this is what I would think of as like a firmly PG-13 movie. I think the only thing that would take it out of PG-13, because there's no real violence. There's obviously no, there's very little in the way of gore or anything like that. The only thing I could think of is when
There's a lot of gore.
The only thing I can think of is when they're trying to scare the Dietzes initially, and he's got her head. He's got Gene Davis has got Alec Baldwin's head and the knife,
Right, yeah.
kind of scene.
And then I would also say, like, when they get their monster faces on, it's kind of gory.
Yeah, it's more body horror-ish type of thing. There's not blood or anything like that.
Yeah,
but,
there's very little blood, but I mean, I think, his decapitated body running around is...
Yes.
I mean, it's a gag, but also it's bloody.
It has horror themes, 100%. I just like, if they play it on Freeform right before the 700 Club, it's hard for me to call it true horror. I mean, 700 Club is maybe more horrifying.
Is that how you watched it this time too?
No, I watched the DVD. I watched the DVD because I got the nice fucking model, which they don't obviously play on Freeform. But yeah, Pat Robertson is scarier than this movie.
I think by you trying to say that this isn't a horror movie, that you are simply desensitized the same way that somebody who watches too much pornography is.
That's also true of me.
So you just can't accept and respect the jump scares and the spookiness that would be, I remember as a younger kid, this movie was a little intense.
Right, we have to think about time and
child's
place.
horror
And I think when we are talking about older movies, I do think time and place has to be a factor.
Yeah.
And I feel like I said, it was a little bit spooky, but it wasn't as spooky as something like when Chucky was on.
No.
I actually probably got more terrified of watching Ghostbusters with the gargoyles.
Yeah,
I'm not gonna lie.
Ghostbusters has some intense moments too with the.
Yeah.
But no one would call Ghostbusters a horror movie.
No one
No.
would ever. That's what I'm saying. But I was more terrified of those things.
This movie exists right between in the if you're lining up every single movie that has any type of spooky themes associated with it, this is right above Hocus Pocus and right below Ghostbusters.
Okay.
You know what I mean in terms of horror factor.
Yeah.
This is not a horror. I don't think anybody would call this a horror movie. It is a haunted house movie. I will give it that. I think what this is going to come down to is, what are we weighing? Where is the weight in terms of the grading this? Because there's no way you can convince me this is a horror movie.
We are a horror podcast.
I may
guys.
not.
I was going to bring that up, and thank you, Meg, for bringing it up. If you look at our description on the Meg is silently laughing right now with her hands in her face. If you look at the description of this podcast, it is decidedly a horror movie podcast.
Sure.
This is not a horror movie.
To your definition. However, if you just simply Google Beetlejuice horror movie,
well, yes,
it comes up.
If you Google
that's what I'm
classy
saying.
horror movie, things
okay,
will come
so
up.
I'm gonna also
If
throw
you
this out there too. That is that you just watch Hocus Pocus
Yes.
because it's spooky season.
Sure.
So there's still this relevance that, we're a horror movie. I would agree with you with the level of, but this family horror thing isn't not horror.
No, it's
your
not horror,
children-
because family horror is not the right term. It is a kind of spooky family comedy. And if you if you Google just Beetlejuice movie, it's not described as a horror movie on any platform. No one calls it out as a horror movie. I'm looking at IMDb.
Oh, you're going to
Google.
listen to Jeff Bezos now? Chill.
Nanobots. The nanobots have told me this is not horror. I'm not saying, because we didn't say specifically, I'm not saying it's an invalid pick. But guys, don't mean to drag up the past. But I do recall
Brian
being told that Hush is not a quintessential slasher.
Yeah, no,
Okay.
it totally isn't.
it
Yeah,
wasn't.
agreed. This can't be considered a quintessential haunted house horror movie because it's not a horror movie.
Mm.
Okay.
You know what? Fair point.
Okay.
That's all I'm saying.
It's a fair point.
I know
Steve.
what route I'm taking then.
Steve has chose violence.
Yep.
I can tell from the look on his face. He has chose violence.
Yep.
I'm
going to
not saying-
lose because I'm going to have to take Meg with me too, but
You're gonna take me with
you both are going. You both are going. And
Oh my
I'm
God.
not going
All
to
I'm
win
saying-
any votes from either of you, but if I have to
love Beetlejuice. I love Beetlejuice. It's one of my favorite movies.
Dude,
I
we can
really
team up right
genuinely
now
love
if you want.
Beetlejuice.
we can team up, but
And it is a haunted house movie.
his
It-
movie is next. So,
Yeah.
We'll see what
I'll
happens.
get him first.
Okay.
We'll see what happens.
right,
We'll
all
see
right.
what happens.
All right. All right. Let's do a quick break.
Let's do a
Let's
break.
do a little quick pee break, and we'll be back. And your boy's going to talk about 2018's Terror. Let's jump into my movie. So, I think I might have mentioned on the last episode 2017 that it's from 2018. It is an Argentinian film called Terrified. This is a movie that popped up for me, I don't remember, on one streaming service. I know right now it's streaming on Shudder. I don't know if that's the first place I watched it. I feel like it probably is because a lot of the foreign horror that I watch ends up being on there. So Argentinian film from 2018. I'm not saying this is a perfect movie by any stretch of the imagination, but this is one of the scarier movies that I've seen.
Mhm.
Honestly, I would put it up there in terms of some of the scariest movies that I've seen. And that's part of the reason why I want to see it. Like, Steve, you called me out for being jaded. I absolutely am jaded. Like,
Yeah.
I mean, I watch freaking horror movies every day. I am absolutely jaded. And movies that are, I can tell are going to be scary for other people. I'm like, I wish this was scarier for me. Like, this is a movie that generally like got me
Yeah.
a few times.
No, I agree.
Which
I genuinely felt like it was pretty spooky.
yeah. So I said that was a big differentiator for me. But it's actually set, even though it's an Argentinian film, it's set in Buenos Aires. It is subtitles, right?
Mm-hmm.
So if that's a turnoff for you, I would urge it. Don't let this be a turnoff for you. This is absolutely worth a watch. And like, I know that's why it probably doesn't get a lot of attention. And, you know, there's other things. Like I said, it's not a perfect movie, but
also it's on Shudder, so that's not like a lot of people have it, but it's not the biggest platform.
But I think you can get it other places, right? I think it's on like Amazon Prime, if I'm not mistaken.
Sure, yeah, you can buy it there.
You can buy it somewhere, right? Yeah. So, but I really wish this movie got a little bit more attention. So, you start off. And you start to get, and I'm going to cruise through because there's a lot of moving parts in this movie. And obviously we're going to spoil the hell out of it. But I would still, if you haven't watched it, I would still urge you to watch it because I'm not going to touch on all the things. And like, this movie's so atmospheric, which I think is one of the greatest parts about it. But you start off with this couple. You don't know anything about them. They're in their house. There is a woman who is standing at her kitchen sink, and she starts to hear voices sounding like they're coming from the sink. You know, what sounds like, you know, some kind of whispers and kind of glugs and chugs and weird noises that are coming from the sink that can't be explained. She explains to her husband that she heard these voices, and he was kind of discrediting her. And she explains that these voices said that they were going to kill her. So she's a little bit freaked out. You start to hear a lot of like banging on this couple, right? All these banging on the walls. You know, they're in their house, and you know, the wife goes off and says, "Hey, I'm going to go take a shower or whatever." And it's early in the morning. It's like supposed to be like 5 a.m. or something like that. This guy, and I think his name is Juan, if I'm not mistaken. He says he hears this banging on the wall, and he thinks it is his next door neighbor that he shares. You know, so these houses are almost like kind of row houses, like ranch style 1-story houses, but they're right up against each other. So obviously they kind of share a wall, an interior wall rather. And he hears this banging, and he thinks it's Walter, which he had spoken to, and you get this kind of flashback later, who has suggested that he's doing some repairs on his house. So he assumes that's what's happening. And he bangs on the wall, it stops, and he's like, "Hey, you dumb asshole, it's way too early for you to be, you know, doing renovations on your house. We're trying to sleep here." And then ultimately, you know, he goes into the bathroom, and there's just great kind of blindsided scene, and it just takes the tension to fucking 10 right off the bat. And his wife is what I can only describe as hovering over this bathroom, or I'm sorry, the bathtub, just being violently smashed face first and backwards and forwards and backwards against the walls in the bathroom. He's confused. He's freaking out. He's kind of bewildered. She's obviously dead, and her corpse is just being slammed against the wall. It is, it's pretty gruesome, and it takes you by guard. I remember the first time I started watching this, I just kind of put it on a whim. Yeah. And was like, what the actual fuck? Like, that was a really effective scene, and they linger on it so long too. But so you're off to the fucking races pretty quick with this movie. So I always appreciate that. So you then the one thing that's I don't want to say confusing, but it's definitely something you got to keep track of is like the timelines in the movie.
I don't know. I thought it was pretty easy.
Yeah, I mean, I had mild confusion with timelines, but I feel like it wasn't important enough as much as like you need to just know that there are like multiple stories going on at the same time, and then they eventually come together, and then to this one point.
I think early on in the movie, you get introduced to this couple, which you come to know a little bit, and then this terrible thing happens, and then all of a sudden you're thrust into a different situation with some other people who you don't know anything about, and then they all kind of come together, and you figure out where they interact pretty quick. So yeah, not terrifically difficult to follow, but for a second it is kind of like, okay, who are these people? Whatever.
Yeah, it's structurally similar to another film, but I'll bring it up in a minute.
All right. And then so Steve
love
again
I love
choosing
your
violence.
smug face.
Just the fucking shit-eating grin on Steve's face right now. This group of investigators starts to talk to the husband, right? And they start to tell this story, and they start to talk about Walter, which is his next door neighbor. And they cut to Walter. He's the neighbor of this couple, and this is kind of a flashback. And it's Juan telling the story, So he's already being haunted. He's already experiencing some degree of haunting or effects of some sort of entity within his house. And there's lights flickering, there's all these types of things happening in his house, noises, things being moved within his house. And he's obviously been dealing with this for some time. I think he suggests like 3 weeks or something like that. Jump a little bit forward. He's trying to get in touch with this Dr. Albrecht, who he has been suggested in some capacity that she might be somebody that can help him. She won't do it without proof. He sets out to try to get proof of what he's experiencing. So he sets up a camera. There's a couple different instances of him trying to gain proof or convince her to help him. There is some sort of tall, naked, ghoulish creature.
Honestly, I feel like his segment, when you get to know him, was probably one of the scariest.
Yeah. With this big kind of, you first get a quick shot of it, like folded up under his bed, and you come to learn that these entities, they kind of sneak around in your peripheral vision or outside of your field of vision in the dark, wherever, at this point, I was just like, go stay in a fucking hotel, bro. Like, don't I don't know how you're dealing with this shit, but he was all about trying to get this kind of proof, I guess. Like when he comes home at the end of work and he goes and walks into his house, like I wouldn't be setting fucking foot in there ever again.
Absolutely not.
Ever again.
But I think the other part of that though is I think he makes mention that he's like on some sort of medication.
Yeah.
And that it's possibly something that's in his head.
He's not 100% convinced yet.
Right.
Yeah. It's not some sort of something that, like I said, the manifestation in his head. But ultimately he does get, a shot where he sees on his camera this, like I said, this big, tall, naked, ghoulish man
Dickless
figure, kind of thing, who is hiding under his bed, and then ultimately in his closet, and then eventually gets got right in some capacity. So he kind of sees this thing before it kind of gets the best of him, and then that, for the time being, is the kind of the end of the story with Walter. Walter, is still in the house in some capacity. They cut to a scene where Walter, you don't really see him, but he's in the house, and some kid comes up and is like kind of peeking in his window or whatever. Walter kind of scares this kid out into the street, and he gets hit by a bus.
Right.
Again, unexpected, brutal.
I think at first, you think that was Walter, because I just thought it was one of the ghosts that was in.
Or somebody. So you come to learn later that they can manifest. They can use people's bodies in some capacity, and that's how I took it. What was happening there. But again, this is all the Juan, the husband of the woman who was getting slammed against the wall, kind of recounting this to this set of 3 investigators. The kid comes back. I don't know what Steve is planning, but I'm very nervous. The kid comes back. So the kid comes back from. So this sets up another scene where this police officer who comes to be one of the main or really in a lot of ways the main character for the rest of the movie is brought in to investigate this case, where she comes to a house. There is this mother of this child who was hit by the bus. She comes home, the funeral has happened. The kid has been buried. She comes home, and there are footprints all over the house. In fact, on the side of the house, everywhere. And then of course, right through the house, muddy footprints, and the kid's corpse is sitting at the table, just sitting there in this really, creepy position, obviously like kind of mid decomposition. this it's
I thought you were going to say mid-breakfast.
mid-breakfast. He is. He's got a glass of
He
milk.
definitely was set up to have as if he needed his morning bacon.
His name is, and I haven't got the part of my notes, but it's Funes, I think is the guy's name.
Funes is the
police
cop.
The cop.
Yeah.
And then he brings in his friend, who is an expert in the paranormal, Jano.
Yeah.
Is the guy's name.
And Yano is also like a retired detective.
Right.
So-
But he is definitely specializes in some capacity in
Right.
this supernatural situation, and he is one of the three people who are questioning Juan. Funes is this local detective, and had a relationship with this woman, with the woman, with the dead child's mother. They had a long-term romantic relationship. This scene is so unique to me. The kids sitting at the table and a long, prolonged conversation between Funes and Yano, talking about it, talking like these. They do a great job of communicating these like seasoned veteran cops that have seen everything
Mhm.
and aren't scared of anything, and they are shook, right, by this kid
Right.
sitting there kind of corpses,
Mhm.
kids sitting there staring. They linger on the shot. They kind of speculate that he moves, but he doesn't, and you're just kind of on your edge of your seat waiting for this jump scare that never comes, or at least not at this point. It's just such a unique, I thought, brilliant scene. He does eventually like knock the milk down, which is a kind of a nice little jump scare, but it's not, you don't actually kind of see it happen. So, but yeah, the shutting the lights off, and then that's when that happens. He explains, that's when he explains he has a long-term relationship with the boy's mother. You see how Yano and Dr. Albrecht meet. She just happens to be across the street. So there's essentially these two houses, right? So there's Juan's house, there's Walter's house. They're right beside each other, and then the kid's house and his mother are across the street. So it's like this street, this neighborhood. It's not even neighborhood. It's literally like two houses and then a house across the street kind of thing. So she's over there trying to investigate Walter's house because Walter had left her these like panicked messages. Little does she know Walter is got at this point, right? And Yano, recognizes Dr. Albrecht because he had some sort of, he went to a conference or something like that where she was a speaker. They go inside and he basically says, I got something to show you, goes in and shows, what's going on with the boy, explains, he explains that he's had similar experiences like this in the past, when he was performing autopsies and corpses coming back to life and talking to him or looking at him or interacting with him in some capacity. The neighbor kid who is friends with the deceased boy sees them, is coming in there, sees the kid, like knocks on the window, and the dead kid's head moves, right, in some capacity. He obviously got up, there's muddy boots, so he is still, this corpse is moving around, right? Shit's still happening here. So they know that this is the case. They decide, because they're trying to solve this, but I think this is definitely a cultural thing that maybe we're not really introduced to in a real significant way. But it's this whole idea of they're like trying to keep things really like under the radar.
Yeah.
I mean, did you think it was a cultural thing versus like a genuine, like, this is so fucked up and we just like don't want...
Yeah,
I
didn't.
Like, I didn't take it as a cultural thing.
Well,
I thought it was like
the only
literally
thing that
like
took me was they were like, "Hey, don't what do they say? Like,
they were trying to not transport the body during the day.
yeah.
But I don't think that's necessarily cultural per se, because we've seen plenty of other movies where they try to cover things up in small town America.
Sure. Yeah,
So
you're
that's
probably right.
Yeah.
I just took it as like, because he kept saying like, let's get out of here before the neighbors start asking questions and stuff like that.
It was definitely something like, let's not draw attention to what's going on here. So
yeah, I think it was more about covering.
Yeah, they're definitely trying
like,
not to cause panic, whatever. So they end up moving the kid to a freezer, to like a chest freezer, which, maybe questionable decision there. But they get back to the present, and Juan, kind of agrees to let them investigate the house. And, again, I'm kind of moving pretty quickly here, but along with, the two other houses, Eunice, the cop, the detective, Yano, Albrecht, and now Albrecht's assistant, who is
Rosenstock,
who's American.
right?
They decide to split up into these 3 houses and basically do this kind of almost like a supernatural stakeout type situation in these houses. So Yano is in the boys' house. Albrecht is in Juan's house, and Funes and Albrecht's assistant are in Walter's house, and they start to set up all their ghost hunting shit, right? And then great scene. There's silverware hanging from underneath this cabinet. And Albrecht's assistant comes up and Rosenstock, and he's like kind of like touching it and like, hey, look what's happening here or whatever. And all of a sudden his hand is like almost magnetically sucked up through one of the knives. So it pierces his hand, and they're trying to like figure out what's going on. They're like panicking a little bit. And then he points out that his blood is being sucked up into the cabinet.
Can we talk about this character, this Rosenstock character for a second? Because he is ridiculously funny in that he's just like so jazzed the whole time. He's just like, they're sucking my hand. Oh my God, don't do anything. And they're sucking my hand. And I'm like,
has seen
he's
some
so
shit.
enthusiastic.
Yeah. So you get the idea that Dr. Albrecht and Rosenstock have been on a lot of these types of cases.
Yeah.
So they've experienced a lot of stuff. They're not easily rattled, almost to a ridiculous degree.
They also mention early on, like when they're talking to Juan in the facility he's being held at, they said they've seen something similar in the United States.
Right.
So
in like 1998 or whatever.
Yeah.
So this was a case they've seen this before.
Right.
Yeah. And then
that sound design though, just for 1 second, that sound design when his blood is being sucked is fucking terrible because it is the sound of a milkshake being drank.
You are right, Steve. That was pretty bad.
That was a bad sound effect.
Yeah, it was not great, but I will tell you that I do like when they opened it up and then all of a sudden everything slid to the other side.
Yeah.
It was just such an effective scene that like probably wasn't terrifically difficult to pull off.
No.
But like just very unique. So there's just a lot of really unique shots.
Had they cut that sound effect out though, it just like because everything else is so good in that.
Yeah.
With the blood dripping up and then everything else in that, it is good.
Yeah. They definitely want to give the ghosts or the demons or the entities, whatever they are, they want to give them like a lot of physicality. You know what I mean? They're like very into doing that. And sometimes it works really great and sometimes it's not great. I mean, I'll be the first to admit, like quickly thereafter, well, we'll get to it in a second. I won't jump ahead too much. But you get to the point where the neighbor, she's leaving voicemails on the mother of the dead kids, answering machine. She's explaining, that, hey, they put your kids, I guess I don't know why she's so concerned. I mean, the body came back. They don't know. They think maybe she did it out of grief, whatever. And she explains to her that, hey, they like put her in the freezer, put the kid in the freezer or whatever. So we get past the, assistant getting his hand sucked up type of thing. And this is when shit really starts kind of hitting the fan in all of the houses. There's I thought some really kind of well executed jump scares here. There's these great kind of like bassy stings and I think some pretty good timing. I'm usually not a big jump scare guy, but I just feel like so many of these are like pretty well executed, even down to the one where like I think it's Yano who's looking across the road at the other house, and there's the weird entity, the big ghoulish guys in the window, and he's like looking, and every time he looks across like the break in the window, it's gone, and all of a sudden it's there. So there was some pretty creative jump scares at least. Eventually Funa bails. He's like, he goes over to the kid's house to talk to Giano. He things are hitting the fan over there as well. So then he goes over to the house where Albrecht is. She's investigating this whole like crack in the wall, which was kind of a callback to earlier when they thought the crack was as a result of the renovations that Walter was doing. So she starts to explain the nature of these creatures a little bit, and it's like a parallel universe that's happening. Basically these like entities in these parallel universes, and they kind of like feed off of people, and they can use their bodies and all that sort of thing.
She even goes as far to explain that it's microbes in the water.
Yeah, she even says
no.
then they can travel through water, and that starts to explain like why they're in the pipes.
Mhm.
Obviously makes some explanation around why they're in the pipes.
Which also explains the kid coming back because he drinks from Walter's faucet that's in his yard.
Oh, I
Right before
didn't
he's hit
even
by the
make
bus.
that connection. That's great.
That's
yeah,
a good point.
I did. So that's why he's returned from the dead is
Mhm.
because he drinks from that, and they make it a point to show him drinking from the garden faucet there.
Yeah.
So yeah, great point. That completely went over my head.
That's cool.
So she kind of explains like the nature of them being in these parallel planes of existence, and then again another great jump scare of her getting attacked by this big creepy hand out of the crack in the wall. And that one, the first time I watched it, I didn't see it coming, scared the ever loving shit out of me. Just like really, I was like, whoa, geez, it just made me jump out of my skin because I did not see it coming. Funes, he had alluded to the fact that he's got like a condition, so now he's starting to have a heart attack. As this creature's kind of crawling towards him. Eventually the kid's mother comes, kind of confronts him about, hiding the son's body. She agrees to take him to the hospital because he's like, I'm having a heart attack. You got to take me to the hospital, like begging her. And she's obviously not like in her right mind, but he's like, needs her help. So I love this scene, because you get outside the house and for a quick second, you think it's safe if you're out in the street, now they go out and to take him to the hospital, and she's like, get in the car, and she's got the son's body in the back seat,
right?
And he's like, oh fuck, I'm not getting in that car.
Nope.
So
the car stinks.
So he gets in his car to try to drive himself to the hospital, basically mid cardiac episode, and all of a sudden the mangled, kind of deformed body of Albrecht comes running out of the alleyway and just slams into his car.
Can we talk about that for 2 seconds? That was just like some almost like John Carpenter.
That was like a thing.
That was a thing.
Because you don't see it's one of those things. I love shots like that when you see it coming from a long ways away, but your brain doesn't make sense of it.
It doesn't make any sense because it's just coming straight at the camera. And it comes out of the darkness, and it's not until it's too late,
right? And you're like, holy fuck,
her head's bent over backwards.
Yes.
That I think that was.
I thought that was good.
That one was probably my favorite shot, and then maybe in the very beginning, where Clara is looking at the sink, and just the simple of the bubble acting like lungs being breathed into.
I forgot about that.
That was probably my other favorite shot of this.
Yeah. So he gets out of the neighborhood. One of the officers is there. I thought this was an interesting little tense scene where he's on the radio with one of his officers and warning him to leave. And you really think that like something's going to happen to him. He's going to hear it over the radio, over the CB. But it's just one of those things, like small example when the film messes with your expectations, because the officer does get away kind of thing, but it's like a nice little tense scene. So fast forwarding towards the end here, Funes gets the bright idea he's going to burn the house down, so he goes back, just starts dumping gas everywhere. The dead kid is still kind of lurking around the house. He finds that the mother who he had this relationship with has hung herself.
I feel like suicide scenes are pretty intense in a lot of ways too. That like 'cause I feel like in that scene, what drew me in was that like you could see it when they walked in, and you kind of like knew it was there. You knew something was back there hanging, and then they drew attention to it. And I'm like, that's like very emotional.
They play with your like line of sight a lot in this movie too, which I thought was great. They do another, I thought pretty effective jump scare where he's outside trying to light it and Jono comes out. So he had, at one point I'd skipped over this, Jono had gotten got by that entity, and he had him kind of jammed in like a cabinet, and he had done this like scream thing about like there's glass in my eyes or whatever, which was an effective scene. But I think if you spoke Spanish, it probably would have been even more effective.
Sure.
You know what I mean? Like just to hear like the tone in his voice or whatever. But he is outside now, and he's kind of standing there, beside Funes when he's looking to start the fire, and he's got, like I said, his eyes are all fucked up and stuff like that. So it cuts back to Juan in custody a year later. They ask him about Funes. They explain, and Jono and Albrecht, and they explain they know, Funes burned the house down and that he's a fugitive at this point. Albrecht and Jono are obviously Dunzo. And Juan explains that as they're standing there, he sees Albrecht. What was his name?
Sees Rosentalk.
Rosentalk,
Yeah.
Albrecht's assistant, is behind them, and he explains, "So hey, he must have come with you, and nobody else can see him but Juan." A little chair jerks, really creepy scene, but then this chair flies towards the camera, and that's like the final scene. It's not good. Steve, yeah,
I feel like
the
that,
CGI
like-
chair flying at the
No,
screen
and I feel like
as
that
the credits
fucked up
run.
the movie. I think it made it not make sense. Literally, that was like my one biggest
It was a
takeaway that I was
bad
like,
final scene.
yeah,
Bad final scene. I'll totally agree to that.
I just like, I mean, it takes him like, this is supposed to be a haunted. It made sense with like the multiple houses thing. It totally made sense.
Yeah.
The moment that last scene was the only one of the few down things that I'm just like, this made this movie now. No matter like it almost went from like a house that was haunted to people that were haunted.
Yeah, it was a really shitty final scene. So
bad.
I, that is my one big complaint. There's a couple of things that I'll fess up to in terms of like my not my favorite things about the movie, and then I'll talk about the things I really liked. At times I think it's hard to kind of say at times like who the narrator is. So like it's jumping around the timelines and all that thing. I don't think it's terribly hard to pick up on, but it's, it does create a little bit of confusion at times. There are some instances of some not great CGI.
I think that's pretty forgivable.
I would say the one is, when Rosenstock has the thing kind of cornered under the bed, and its feet, like it's not, the CGI isn't great. And then that final chair sequence, like why did you do that?
Right.
It didn't make
Why?
sense.
Just why?
Yeah.
At the very end, and they tried to like finish on this jump scare, but it just like it really didn't work at all.
I feel like it could have ended differently and ended more scary.
If
Like
they
I probably
literally
could have
just
come up
ended
with 10
Juan
ideas.
going like he came with you or whatever. Even then, it doesn't provide a lot of continuity with what was happening the rest of the story. But I can take that Juan is seeing him and they're not, and it's because Juan drank the water because he lived there.
Sure.
Right.
So the curse, the haunting, whatever is
I
spreading.
still don't know if that could work because like anyone who drank the water, even like, we're talking about Walter, like they weren't haunted outside the house. Like Walter would have been one of those characters where
Walter
like
didn't see
why
entities
didn't he
at work.
Yeah.
Or anything
That's
like
what I mean,
that.
yeah.
So I totally will say like that ending. I fucking like for loving the whole rest of the movie. The ending definitely didn't help.
Overall, I thought it was super spooky.
Genuinely really effective, atmospheric. It does some things we've seen before, but I just thought there was a lot of unique shots and like the performances were convincing.
It's interesting though that with what happened last month, that you would do Ghost of Mars again.
God. You son of a bitch. I saw no Ice Cube. But that end was essentially the equivalent.
The music was also 10
so
times better.
Let's go through things of why this is Ghost of Mars again.
Wow.
We start with a cold open that leads to somebody speaking to a tribunal of characters.
That's true.
And then it is told in flashback.
That is true.
We come to characters, a ragtag group investigating a bunch of ghosts.
Yeah.
Ghosts that we find out that may not actually be ghosts because they're microbes in the air / water.
What are ghosts? I mean, they're
what?
so
I
when
think
we
Steve
talked
has
about
some
this,
good points.
Ghosts
When we
are
talk-
spirits of the dead.
when we talked about this, our one specification, which we all agreed on, is ethereal.
Sure.
These are absolutely ethereal in nature.
Sure, I'm not debating the ethereal nature.
Yeah.
I wouldn't debate the ethereal nature of the ghosts of Mars.
Yeah.
Both are ethereal and both possess people
Yeah.
and take control of their bodies.
Sure.
The debate would be that this isn't a haunted house movie
How so?
because they're not confined to the house, because they don't haunt the house.
They are for 99% of the movie.
For 99% of the movie, but then they leave.
Yes. But
Also,
Yeah.
not 99% of the movie, because you're thinking mostly of the end but that boy does come out of the crypt. So
Yes.
it does affect them outside.
It does. So that's why I brought up in the last episode that like it is a haunted. There is something that has happened on this land,
Right.
that that is manifesting itself as this ongoing haunting kind of entity.
Had I known that what was haunting it was basically the Star Wars reveal of midichlorian just controlling the Force, I may or may not have suggested you don't do this one.
This is
Hey, I'm so happy I'm actually going to take back
so
saying
what
that
you're
I'm
saying-
happy I wasn't there when you guys made the choices, because you guys are clearly
what
great
you're saying is
influences
you're
on one another.
stuck on the origin story of what is
I
happening.
think when she reveals that it's microbes, it totally ruins a lot of the movie.
The
But then
entire-
also with
really? How does it make any of the shots less effective?
it doesn't make the shots less effective. It doesn't
Does it
make
then
the
make
atmosphere.
it more of like an alien type film?
It makes it more alien. It makes it. It just
They
also
never
makes it stupid.
No, it's parallel.
She says
it's
interdimensional.
Parallel
Yeah.
dimensions.
Interdimensional. Yeah.
What
Interdimensional.
are ghosts if not something that lives on a different plane that bleeds into our plane?
But ghosts are also usually known as spirits of the dead.
They might be. They
But
never
okay,
suggest
okay.
they're
I'm
not.
gonna actually there's that though that the people who do get killed become one of those people. Like didn't like
They
half the
get
characters like
get
they
possessed
get
and
taken
taken
in.
over,
So like I can
like in Ghosts of Mars.
So we
But what's
No,
to
no,
say?
you're
not
not
deba-
wrong
that's-
in that one.
yeah,
I'm
no,
gonna
I'm
say
not
you're
debating
not
that.
wrong.
Yeah.
I'm not debating that, but
Yeah.
I'm just saying you did Ghosts of Mars, but also you did Ghosts of Mars, which is not a haunted house movie, and this is not a haunted house movie.
This is a haunted house movie. This is 100% a haunted house movie.
I will
It is
say it's a
about
haunted house movie. It is 110% a haunted house movie.
Straight up
But
from the beginning, it is haunted 3 dwellings. So I've been on board with that from the very beginning. It is not one singular haunted house. It is a haunted street.
But I still think
Or
okay.
2 or
I
3
agree
houses,
that in
whatever.
a way there is this haunted house element, but I do agree like there is an argument for saying that like once they brought up the microbes that it could be like this is something more alien in nature.
So that's a lot of speculation, but I would say
Yeah.
why are we pretending that we know the true nature of ghosts?
Because I think we understand ghosts as being connected to our world.
But it is connected to our world. They were coming into our world and affecting
Do we
people.
know? Yeah, do we actually know? Like when they talk about even this microbes, like it could still be a ghost though. It could literally
That's
be
what
like you know what I mean,
ghosts
like
might be. So
yeah,
this
like
is the
that might
idea:
just
is
be
this was
infecting
their
this.
unique?
Like this is how they learn how to travel.
I thought this was.
I thought
a
we were
very
tuning out. What is wrong with you?
unique. I thought this was a very unique explanation for how ghosts work. Like the idea is like, guys,
It's so unique that John Carpenter did it in 20.
It made me feel like it was one of those things where it made it feel more real when you can tie something that is purely abstract in nature or ethereal in nature to go, there is a physiological, potentially a physiological tie.
So
They also never explicitly say that what Dr. Albrecht is theorizing is fact. She is saying that like this is what I believe.
So we talking
True,
about
but-
Dr. Albrecht. She does go pull a thing on us. Like this is where like I feel
she
toward her. I'm
clearly
just like,
doesn't know a lot
it's-
because she stands by that crack and then thing twists her damn head around.
Right,
Yeah, that's
but she
dumb.
then
she doesn't
still
do
is
shit. She
alive.
sits with some weird occult
This is-
thing, and
Yeah. So
This
these
is why I do have a problem where I'm like, I can see your point,
Mhm.
Steve. I can see your point, Brian.
Mhm.
But I do think there is this alien element to what's going on. I'm
They
not
never
gonna lie.
mention
They
aliens in the whole
don't.
movie.
They don't mention
But
aliens,
they don't
but
mention
going
ghosts
interdimensional.
either. They don't mention ghosts either.
And
But
then you
aliens
just said
don't. When you
Yeah.
say aliens, they're that would allude they're from outer space. They're from a different planet, another physical planet.
But we talk about
They are from
interdimensional. That's the
this
same
planet.
thing. No, we're talking about interdimensional.
you don't get into enough
We do-
conspiracy theories because there are plenty interdimensional aliens.
I know. But I'm saying this is a ethereal entity that is haunting houses.
Okay.
And there's no way you guys can explain to me otherwise.
I don't.
That is-
But that's the thing. I don't know that it.
Megan's
I don't know
laughing
that it
because she knows
resides
how true that is.
as an ethereal
I'm
thing.
laughing 'cause-
Why?
Well, because she defines it as life on another dimension. So
Mhm.
I don't.
What is more ethereal than another
Rosenstock
plane?
also, when he was like lifting up the one thing, it's like the way he was like looking at it, it's like
It's
this
all about
crazy big
perspective, like,
discovery.
what is more ethereal than something that exists on a different plane?
Sure.
That is almost the
Okay.
definition of
Okay.
ethereal.
All right. All right. All right. All right.
I love
But
you
you
guys
said-
are just both looking with these big shit-eating grins on your
But you,
face.
but you also said that you don't know that what she said, what Dr. Albrecht said,
Right.
is true. But it was already kind of proven in a scientific factor of the kid drinking out of the faucet
Yes.
and then becoming.
There's definitely some. It seems that there is some truth to what she says.
Yeah.
Yes. Correct.
And then also at the end, it does escape from the neighborhood.
yes.
And just to continue on the Ghost of Mars train, the hero.
This is that thing. Didn't
the
he
hero
do this a couple
Funes?
episodes ago where he like tried to make some piece of shit? Oh, it was the Carpenter episode. You were trying to make this piece of shit movie like compare it to what? What movie?
Oh,
were
I
you-
was just comparing it to a lot of things.
yeah,
a lot of
comparing it
great
to
things.
good movies. You were like,
One Flew Over the Cuckoo's Nest came
the
up.
Ward is the Shawshank Redemption now. Yeah,
Yeah, One Flew Over the Cuckoo's
yeah, it's a
Nest.
similar tactic. I get
But
it.
you know, the hero tries to destroy
But
everything
he knows
with fire.
enough to be able
Right.
to do this. I would never be able to do what
Yeah.
he's doing.
Funes came back
It's flimsy at best.
and he tried to destroy all the ghosts with
Yeah.
fire, but it obviously didn't work. Just the same way they tried to let off that bomb.
yeah,
And we end on a tribunal that is very skeptical of what's going on.
right.
And then there's a little wink to the camera of a or of a chair flying at the camera, just
Yeah.
the same way Ice Cube looks at a camera.
Yeah.
Wait,
You
do
did
like
Ghost
how
of Mars
I
again.
like how you put the emphasis on Ice Cube, though.
Yeah, Ice Cube.
Ice Cube.
Ice Cube.
Yeah, Ice Cube.
There are
Landed Gentry,
parallels.
Ice Cube.
This movie is decidedly much better than Ghosts of Mars.
Decidedly.
We agreed. Even
No,
I'll
it's a
I'll
great
buy
movie.
into your little game, Steven. I'll buy into your little game. This has a lot of parallels with Ghost to Mars. We talked about how the framework, the guts of Ghost to Mars had so much potential.
Yeah, sure.
And then they just didn't execute.
So this
The
is
vision was
basically
not singular. Here is the actualization of the concept of Ghost to Mars.
I do think though that the ghost thing is too all over the place.
Yeah. Would you say it's a horror movie?
yeah, for
Sure.
sure.
Right.
Definitely.
Sure. But maybe not necessarily a haunted house movie.
Yeah. No. So
So-
but I was very transparent from the beginning in last episode saying this is not a singular dwelling. This is
Right.
There is,
And I
there
would-
is
I
I'm
would
not
be
opposed
willing
to the
to-
idea of a multiple dwelling thing. I'm really not.
No, I'm not opposed to that either. If, it wasn't actually groundwater that was haunted.
But that's okay. Haunted groundwater. The groundwater comes into the house.
But then it just expands from the house. It's not actually the
Haunted-
house.
We should have done You're right. We should have done a haunted groundwater episode.
Yeah.
You're right.
Yeah, there's plenty of haunted groundwater movies out there.
Yeah. This is easily one
Wait,
of the
I
top
bet
5
you
haunted groundwater.
The Friday the
movies.
13th movies could probably be listening to that.
Yes.
You know what? That's actually really great that you said that. I didn't even think or no, because that's across the. I was going to say are the Nightmare on Elm Street movies haunted house movies? No, they're haunted people movies. They're not consistent
Right.
with a particular dwelling
Right.
or particular. So here's my thing. What determines a spot, a house, if not
Interesting.
its
Let's
geographic area?
go back to what Beetlejuice says
Yeah,
in the
that not horror movie that you did.
right
Got it.
in
Yep.
in the handbook for the recently deceased.
Right.
They say hauntings are restricted to a geographical area.
Right.
Rosenstock removes himself from the geographical area of the house.
So what you're saying is Beetlejuice dictates what haunting house movies are.
They say
Your
haunted house.
movie determines the one you chose
Right.
is the thing that lays the.
Did
the
yours have a
parameters.
handbook? Did yours have a handbook? I don't think so.
That's
I
the
don't think
worst
so.
argument I've ever
I don't think so.
Just yours have a handbook.
Yours didn't have a handbook.
Listen, here's our next topic, guys. Tune back in December for the favorite handbook movies, and then in January we do haunted groundwater. All right.
I think it's generally accepted
Yeah.
that if a house is haunted, it's not going to leave the area.
True. I have admitted and have been on board that the last 3 minutes of this movie take it down a notch for me.
Mhm.
It was bad ending. Bad job.
Yeah.
At the ending. Really just, it's like they were right at the finish line and they fucking tripped and face planted right at the end.
Like I'll give it, there is a lot of effective imagery. There's a
Yeah.
lot of things that you don't see. And I think, but just the rules of the Ghost are not solid enough because
We have established Steve's big rules guy.
I like
guy.
I
Likes
like
structure, he likes
rules
rules.
if you establish rules.
Yeah.
If you establish rules,
Yes.
as in saying things like there are microbes in the water,
Yeah.
well then I want other rules of like, well then why is Rosentalk saying that it's dependent on light and darkness, but that's not actually what it's dependent on. It's actually more of a peripheral and sightline thing.
Yeah. It is more sightline than light and dark, but dark affects sightline.
Yeah. And it's like why is the kid able to drag his body and be seated in the kitchen in full daylight when you don't see other bodies?
I think it's because nobody was looking at him.
Well, no, I'm not even talking about movement. I'm just saying simple existence.
Yeah.
Because you can't even see some of the other.
Yeah. Totally understand, because he's a secondary entity,
Mhm.
whereas the other things are presumably some sort of primary entity.
Right.
They are the entity, and he is an entity that is being.
So we
he is
understand
a
that
body that's
maybe
being
not-
manipulated. by
Sure.
the entity.
Maybe it's less dependent on the microbe thing.
Yeah,
Than
the
it's
rules
like,
are
but
not
those
clearly
just like-
defined. 100%. The rules are not clearly defined. There's a ton of ambiguity around it, and I think that speaks to the nature of a haunting. What is more fucking boring than a haunting that is fucking paint by numbers? You know what I mean? Like, how annoying and boring is a like, oh, this is a go. It becomes Ernest Scared Stupid, where once you figure out Miak kills them, you spray them with a goddamn super soaker and you win. It's not that. This is an adult horror movie.
Yeah.
All
He's
right.
definitely putting a lot of emphasis on horror.
We do host a horror movie podcast. I will remind you guys.
If Beetlejuice isn't a horror icon, then why is he always hosting Halloween horror nights?
That is true, and they
Ooh.
do sell
Ooh.
Halloween things at Spirit Halloween. Or I mean, Beetlejuice things Spirit Halloween. They also sell a lot of Nightmare Before Christmas stuff. So this is Hocus Pocus. This is Nightmare Before Christmas.
Oh my
this
god.
This is all those things. Meg, you
Yeah.
did a movie, correct?
I totally did a movie.
Sweet Meg, back with us again after an absence. 2020 Netflix Spooky Ookie, His House. The floor is
His
yours.
Motherfucking house. So we have His House, which is basically the general synopsis is we have two refugees from South Sudan who make their way to London, and they get fucking haunted. All right.
They get haunted.
I'm done.
Here's what it is. Once
Good
again,
synopsis.
Meg hates fun. She wants us to feel bad. This is what this movie is about.
This is Mike Flanagan, but British.
I definitely choose films that are very much so emotionally driven. We know this about me now. So, we have Wunmi Musaku playing as Riel, which the biggest thing I want to take away from like some of her notable roles is that she has been played on the Lovecraft Country series from HBO.
I still haven't watched that.
Who?
I like what?
Who was she on? Lovecraft?
Let me see.
She was the
as
sister.
Ruby.
Yeah, she was the sister, right?
Yeah, I was
Yeah,
like,
yeah,
because like the
She's
moment
great in
I'm
that.
like, she looked familiar, but I at the same time I'm like, the moment they made the connection, I was like, oh shit, yeah, okay, cool, we're
My
good.
friend Mark has been trying to. He brought that. He really likes that, and it keeps
It's
suggesting
great.
it
It
to
is
me. I haven't
really
watched
good.
it
Yeah,
yet.
I feel like I'm probably still behind on it, but it was from what I've seen so far, it's been a great show. And then so I only have like 3 main notable characters in this. So then I have Sobi Dirisu. I really might be butchering these names, and people can correct me all they want, as Bull. So we have Rial and Bull as like 2 of our main characters, husband and wife, and then we have Matt Smith playing as Mark, which he played on Doctor Who, but then I personally knew him from The Crown. Like he played
Okay.
Prince Philip on The Crown. That was like one of the last things I saw him on. So we have, again, a refugee couple makes a harrowing escape from a war-torn South Sudan, but they struggle to adjust their new life in an English town that has an evil lurking beneath the surface. Okay, so that's our preface for this.
Mm-hmm.
So we open the film. Bull and Rial are refugees. They're fleeing with their daughter, Niagak.
Yeah.
I feel like that's probably the best way I could probably pronounce it.
Yeah.
And they end up, we really learn early on, they're like basically getting out of South Sudan. And then they go on this like very harrowing ship ride from, I think what I read was like, it officially was like probably not necessarily from South Sudan, but maybe like France over to London.
Okay.
Okay.
It's the English Channel. I think it was like what was actually the biggest was when they were on the boat.
Or maybe it's the Mediterranean.
Yeah,
Crossing.
Some of the
From
things I read,
Africa
it seemed like it was like they said something about the English Channel, so that's like why.
It might have been that.
You obviously don't really necessarily specifically know those are just speculating, like things that you
They're
read
in
online.
this like small boat that is just chocked full
Yeah,
of
it's
people
like-
that are obviously in a similar situation as them.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Think about war torn, but like maybe Titanic-esque, where you're just like, yes, we're in the middle of an ocean that's gonna have probably treacherous like weather and water conditions and stuff like that. So basically, then we cut. So we have this big epic scene, and then it cuts to Bull basically waking up, and this is like almost like a flashback, or it's a dream of him reliving these experiences. So we have two very trauma-driven people that are going now to this new country to try to like exist and have a new life.
Mm-hmm.
We go into it and that they are granted basically what they call probational asylum in Britain. And let me see. When they get this probation, they're basically transported into this like really shitty fucking house, but they play it off like you have to follow all of these rules, you have to do all of these things, and you can't go anywhere and you can't do anything, and we're going to give you some money, you can't work and do whatever. And then they show up at their house and it's like has fucking cockroaches, it's such a fucking disgusting place, but it's like 10 times better from where they were. And so like we even have Bull have this scene where he's like breaking down. He's almost like hysterical in ways, like he's just like laughing and then crying and stuff like that.
He's definitely clearly dealing with like some PTSD.
Yeah,
type
yeah.
situation.
You really get an emotional connection to like what they're dealing with, and I feel like they designed the film really well to try to put yourself in their shoes, or at least like understand that this is more than just, oh, we're going from one country to another and we're just trying to start a new life. No, this is an emotional experience for them.
Yeah, they do a great job of demonstrating like the stress
Yes.
associated with this, like the indignity, the uncertainty,
Yep.
like all these things like are very heartbreaking.
Yeah.
You're feeling a ton of empathy for these people.
Yeah, they don't try to hide in any way, shape, or form like how much these countries who are taking refugees don't really totally give a fuck. They're just like, okay, yeah, we got to do this, so on and so forth. So here's like the
you get a
shittiest
feel
thing that
for
we can
the
fucking give you.
bureaucracy.
Right.
Yeah.
It's also that cold bureaucracy back of just, we don't care. This is what you have to do.
Yeah.
We don't
care what you tell us.
And you're so lucky to give
Yeah.
this what we're giving you.
Yeah.
Yeah, and the other thing that like notable thing that is just like it makes you so emotionally drawn in is like before they're officially getting on the bus to go to this new place, is they have that scene where another refugee is like basically being beaten
Mhm.
to death, and there's blood all over the floor in one of the rooms as they're walking past.
Right, and there's like no context given to why he's being beaten.
Right.
It's just what happens in that detention center.
And I feel like you can almost like make assumptions of like all the things that we have like seen and dealt with like with society today, with like what we see in these detention centers and so on and so forth that we're dealing with in America and stuff like that. So they get into this house. Bull does put so much effort into trying to assimilate. You know, he's going to watch the football games and singing the songs with people, and he starts wearing different clothes and makes a huge effort for that. Gets his like haircut like by another like a spot so he can kind of try to assimilate. But then we do experience at some point that like he starts asking his wife to stop eating with her hands and start eating at a table and stuff like that. So he's really putting a lot of effort because he wants to make this work. However, what we see so quickly is that pretty much almost the first night that they're there, Bull is the first one to start being haunted by, he starts hearing noises, he starts seeing things, moving in the wall, and you start getting a feel for something's not right here.
Mm-hmm.
And we also understand that Riel, she is definitely clinging very close to that cultural, like she is hard pressed to try to change anything about what they experience because they don't want to not still be who they are. You know, when she's even going to go to the doctor and get checked out, obviously she dealt with a lot of traumatic things just literally on her walk over there, but you know, you can tell how much she's resisting anyone trying to connect with her, with the doctor, which granted, you never know. Like the doctor definitely was clearly like had judgments, but was also trying to connect with her, talking about her daughter, trying to talk to her about her like scar tattoos that she has that were very symbolic to her. And she was so like distant and like almost even wanting to, I think, to like make her understand, you know, the way she said things about like, I have these tattoos because I wanted to assimilate or like be part of, I don't want to be part of anyone. So I wanted to be part of everyone so that I could be safe.
Yeah, she kind of explains, and you get a little bit of the origin story there too, in that, you know, where they came from. There were two like warring tribes that were like slaughtering each other, and you were part of one or the other, and you were obviously susceptible no matter what. So she was part of these. She had taken a stance, maybe is not the right word, but she had basically said like, my goal is survival. And so I am going to mark myself with both tribes so that I can, you know, potentially avoid the violence associated with either one. You know what I mean? Kind of play both sides.
And you never really hear Bull's side of that too, but like obviously they both made it out of there, and I think we'll touch on it a little bit later. But so we already know that Bull has like seen things, and I think one of the most epic scene of like his hauntings was like we have that one night where he is literally almost seeing every single person he saw on like the boat. He is like in you, and they use this like really cool thing where like turning off lights and turning on the lights, which I thought was really effective. And we come to find out really that there are like two main people, I guess you would say, haunting this like dwelling, and one of them is a man, and I'll dive into who that is next. But then also their daughter, I need to look at the name just to say it properly. Nyagak.
That's as close as I could.
Yeah. But both of them are still like experiencing things in this house differently. But Bull seems to be getting a little bit worse. He seems to be very targeted in this dwelling, that everything that has happened pre-living there is now like showing up in this dwelling.
Yeah, and there's like this unspoken like struggle between not only them, meaning the husband and wife, Bull and Rial, but also like internally this struggle between like how much do you want to give up of yourself in an effort to assimilate and make this work. And like Bull is obviously way more willing to,
he almost wants to like say fuck everything, but he's like, this is my house. And Rial was very much so, no, my home is still somewhere else. This is just where I'm living now.
So it's not only the physical relocation and their idea of how they're going to accept that and move forward, but also like how much of yourself are you willing to give up? You know what I mean?
So Rial basically works out, and she shares with Bull that she has a story of this what was he? He was a poor man, but I can't remember. She said something out. It was like poor but something man that she thinks is now haunting their house. And it basically is like this idea of an apeth or a night witch. And she tells a story. Okay, it's like a poor man who lived in her village who accidentally stole from an apeth by the river. And then when when the thief built his home, the Apeth moved in with him and haunted him. So
Yeah.
she has this idea that like we are not clearly told what happened totally beforehand, but you start getting hints that like maybe their journey to this new land isn't totally pure, or like something happened.
Something happened. The only thing they've alluded to, obviously in the flashbacks and the dreams that Bull's experiencing, but also in their conversation, that obviously their daughter didn't make the trip.
Mhm.
Right.
She died, and
Right.
she tells the doctor that, right?
Right.
Or it might not have been doctor, whoever it was in the clinic. So it's they have lost their daughter
Mhm.
somewhere
Mhm.
along the way, and then part of that struggle and the tie to their former self that Bull is more willing to give up and that she is not is
Mhm.
the fact that their daughter is no longer with them. So like
Mhm.
Bull is kind of like, I'm past that.
Right.
And
Mhm.
Rial is like, no, I'm not. I'm going to hang on to that. So
Right.
that's part of that. It ties into that same struggle.
And I did pull some information about like the idea of the Apeth, because like I wanted to at least like talk, because that is like literally one of the biggest focus when we're talking about like the haunting of this movie. So I pulled this excerpt, so I'm going to read it. So the main source of information on witchcraft on the Dinka people, which is kind of where this whole thing comes from, and they do reference that that's where Bull and Riel are like that's their
culture.
culture,
right?
yes.
Yeah.
Comes from a British anthropologist called Godfrey Leinhardt, who devoted his studies to the Dinka religion. His article, written in 1951 for the International African Institute, Some Notions of Witchcraft Among the Dinka, sheds light on the Apeth and helps enrich the folklore vocabulary of his house. So this is definitely an article related to both. According to Leinhardt, night witches, which is the other name for Apeth, work their supernatural misfortunes in the darkness, an element incorporated in the film when Bull turns on the lights to make the ghosts go away. They can also make their presence known through footprints and place curses on the victims through staring eye. And so a concept that says as much about Bull and Rial's suspiciously xenophobic neighbors as it does their haunting. So, you kind of see that with
Mhm.
like the neighbor who's like, get the book out.
Yeah,
also,
there's especially like there's one old lady
yeah.
who looks pretty witchy, and she's
Yes,
always
she
given
does.
She's
given some
leering at them through the
Yeah.
window,
Mhm.
both of them.
right.
Yeah, so night witches are most malicious wielders of magic, since their main intentions are always to harm others without receiving anything as a trade-off. Thieves like the one in Rial's story may be creating hardship for those they steal from, but their deeds are motivated by the goal of gaining benefits for themselves. The Apeth, on the other hand, lives only to eat, a distinction made to describe the fact that the witch consumes the good fortune of its victims, leaving nothing but misery in its wake.
Okay.
Leinhardt talks about this idea in the context of the community or family unit, a thematic connection to his house, which totally makes sense.
Yeah.
Like, these are all things that like, which I wanted to find more information about it, because I felt like that was the haunting and we needed to kind of have some context
They
for it.
kind of did a good job of the show don't tell thing, and
A little bit, yeah.
like they did a pretty good job of
Mhm.
explaining like me having absolutely no idea what the fucking Apeth is. Like you kind of got through context clues that
Yeah,
was
yeah.
kind of what was going
Yeah,
on.
I
Right.
think that kind of just last line that Meg read though about it being there to consume good fortune
Yeah.
Mhm.
makes a lot more sense now, because basically it's all about them. Bull is trying to not lose the house,
Right.
So
And they're doing things that will make them potentially become at odds with this bureaucracy.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
So Rial believes the Apeth followed them, and if they repay their debt, the Apeth will bring Nyagek back to them. So However, it is not immediately clear like what the debt is. It is they need to repay. It definitely is a hinting at something, like I mentioned before. And around this time, I noted that like the scene when they were really having this like deep conversation was at the dinner table, and we start seeing Bull go into that. It basically goes from like he's eating to almost like he's going back into a dreamlike state, and we see Bull go into that. So he's still like having these struggles throughout the whole thing, and I thought it was a really beautiful scene to start where they basically break down the wall and it has this like gorgeous like red hues where it's basically almost like this sea scene again, but like very dark and red hues to it, and then he's clearly starting getting haunted again by the same things he's been haunted about.
Yeah,
this is where Bull and Riel really start getting at odds, and like Bull is fighting that, like Riel is like clearly understanding that like she wants to leave, they need to repay their debt, and she's basically threatening Bull that she's going to fucking leave, and he needs to kind of figure this out. So we're starting to get hints about what's happening, but Bull tries to still first go to Mark, and who's like the one of the other main characters, and requests just like a new space to live, and
he goes like, to like the refugee, whatever, the bureaucracy office.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Mark is basically like their caseworker.
Yeah. And I like what I hate about this scenario is that like he's just like clearly like having so much traumatic experience here, and he's trying to like make it seem like he's not crazy, and when he knows he's like having this traumatic experience, and like Mark is still just like gaslighting him the whole time. It's just like, well, if we do this, then they might come after you for this, then blah blah blah. You should like, so you're convincing yourself like maybe this isn't as big of a deal as I thought.
Well, and it's also like weirdly like, because Mark is obviously so jaded, he's been a caseworker. You get the idea, and Mark is a weird character because you get the idea that he does care to a certain extent,
right?
But he's so jaded and has been part of the system and the bureaucracy for so long that he knows, and he tries to be transparent with Bull to a certain extent, but he is a little callous and uncaring,
right?
In that he's like, but he's not as much of the other dickheads in the office,
right?
They did make a good distinction though to understand that like I'm glad that they did what they did, because I didn't want them to like fluff it like it was better than it could be. I feel like them being so callous, like you just said, I think was a great way for them to show how refugees could be treated in a given situation.
Because you don't want Mark to be purely a good guy.
No.
You know what I mean?
You don't want him to be the hero.
Yeah, and he's clearly not. You don't want him to be just like the white hope that comes in and like saves this refugee couple.
Right.
So it's kind of like Mark is definitely like a jaded dick on a power trip a little bit.
Yeah.
But he's also like trying to be as transparent with Bull as he can to say like, hey man, listen, I can bring this up, but this is going to raise eyebrows. It's going to raise red flags. And then the dickheads in the office are like, it's bigger than my house, like being shitheads. So like you see the flaw in the system and the bias, you know what I mean, that exists against them.
I didn't even take that as him caring though with his transparency. I thought it was more of, if I do this, then I have to do work.
Yeah.
Maybe
not even
I wouldn't doubt that that's part of it, honestly.
Not even I do work, but like, because he even does this later on when he's like, well, I have to take pictures of this. It's like my livelihood is I have 100 people like you.
Right.
And I have to deal with this. And I've seen it 100 times. And the whole, like the thing that was such a stinging comment that they kept making, and that Bull was trying to play the game, was like one of the good ones. They kept saying one of the good ones, and it's just like made you sick
even
to hear
Bull
that.
was just like, we're the good ones.
I
You know what I
know, and
mean?
it's just like,
it's like
oh,
heartbreaking.
God.
It's like
it was.
You're a good person. Oh God, yeah. This
and it's just like one of the good ones also has like heavily suggested like racist,
especially here.
It's in undertones to it. It's like,
but it's also just like when Bull is in that position of like he really has nothing to offer.
Yeah.
So that's the only thing he can offer. Is
he has no bargaining chips at all.
He can only offer, it's like, I promise you we're good. And
Yeah.
they're like, well, we don't care if you're good.
Right.
Just do the things
Everyone
that we tell
says
you to.
they're
Yeah.
good. You know what I
Yeah.
mean? Like,
Yeah.
yeah. So clearly he, the scene ends like he just like has a very tense moment, breaks the glass, he leaves. Then Bulbous is like, I need to figure this out. So he's going to start tearing apart the wall. He starts breaking it down like
Because he's
literally.
seeing this child.
Yeah, he's
Mhm.
With a mask.
seeing their daughter as well as then like this other figure, which is the Apeth, you know, so they're
Yeah.
seeing both. Like those are the two main ghosts that are really haunting this space. So they're tearing apart the whole, like he starts tearing apart the whole wall, trying to be like, come out, I'm gonna
Do you
find
see
you.
so is the Apeth the person, the entity in the mask?
No,
No.
Because that's the daughter.
That's the
Yeah,
daughter.
yeah.
But you
Right.
start seeing like hands and stuff like that. I mean,
Yeah.
you see this
I just
figure.
took it as they were one and the same.
No, I think
No?
I think it's well in the way that they believe, at least at this point in the movie,
Mhm.
the way they believe that the girl in the mask and the Apeth are two different entities.
Okay.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So
Because like then you obviously see all the other figures that
Mhm.
are popping up, and there was a really tense scene of like where they all kind of like when Bull is like the first time is like I'm gonna face them kind of thing, and they all just like bum rush him, and
Mhm.
he is also seeing what is obviously some manifestation of like a murderous mob
right.
Mhm.
that he would have been potentially fallen victim to in their town,
Right.
you know,
Yeah.
before they left,
Mhm.
you know, the
I-
Sudan.
Just to make a point, like about, so the Apeth, like Rial makes a note about like the Apeth is coming from the sea, you know. So basically,
Yeah.
I think what they're saying is that the Apeth brought Niakek like to the house as like this bartering chip, like so that it could
Okay.
get what it wanted.
I see.
You know, it wanted a body, it wanted someone
I
to
took
go
it
into.
as like she was never actually there in any real way, and it was just like them, the Apeth, which we obviously see later in its like
Yeah.
true manifestation.
Yeah.
Mhm.
Like I took that as she was never actually there. It was just them kind of playing with their emotions.
Yeah.
I definitely think in ways like it knew what it needed to, like, and again, that's why I go back to it's a bargaining chip. I think like
Yeah.
when it talked about it coming from the sea, it like followed them because like
Yeah.
that's where like a lot of the trauma
Mhm.
happened
Yeah.
and stuff like that.
And there's some other shots at the end that suggest that they're still with them, and then just some
Yeah.
things that are said
Mhm.
that I'll save.
Yeah, we'll see.
Yeah.
Because the
Yeah.
plot thickens, right?
Yeah.
Yeah. So, okay, we already covered Bull tears apart the house, and this is like Mark does come here and he's like starts escalating the situation. So that's just a notable thing. But Rial is basically like, no, I'm done, I'm leaving. And then Bull freaks out and he's just like, no, you're not going anywhere. I'm gonna fucking take everything off. Like, you can't fucking leave this house.
Mhm.
This is when Bull let me see. I'm trying to think of when we really learn of like the shit.
Yeah.
It's shortly after
It's
this.
right around this time because like Bull definitely has like when Riel is able to like actually start leaving, she goes into her own basically I'm trying to think like it's not really like she goes into
It's like a
falls in
fugue
this
state almost.
yeah,
Yeah.
like weird state. Like they both go into those like states where Bull is basically like talking to the Apeth and it's like, what do you fucking want?
Yeah,
And-
around the campfire kind of.
Yeah.
Around the campfire, and
And-
then it like transforms into the sea that he's standing in
Yeah.
because he tries to bargain with it and then or tell it that he's done with it,
Yeah.
and it's not having it, and it just like transforms it back into the sea, and then
Yeah.
Well, because then that's when he's like, "Well, you can't hurt me. This is all the
Right.
visions that you're giving me."
But
Yeah.
it basically tells him what he wants, and he's like, "I want your life for Niagak's life."
Yeah.
And so, and he outright refuses, and being basically so they basically describe it as like a momentary catatonia like state of like anger. So Riel manages during this time, she's like staring at him. We watch that scene. She basically is able to escape from the house, but finds herself, she's going into her own state of like dissociation almost is probably the best way to describe it. She gets transported back to her experiences when she was still in South Sudan, and these are like almost like really great moments for her, like to start.
Yeah.
Like it's very communal. She's with all the people she loves.
It's
And-
specifically like what appears to be some sort of school or
Yeah.
something of all these
Yeah.
women that she obviously has like a deep connection with.
Yeah.
Mhm. Yeah. So this is when we then understand how we start really diving into how the fuck they got out of South Sudan and why this might be happening. So Riel was able to survive by hiding, and then Bull ends up finding her, but this is when the town is basically being attacked. He finds her after basically all these women that she was around were murdered.
Yeah. And she
And-
hides in like a cabinet.
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah.
And so he takes her and they get towards a bus to leave. And obviously the bus is being bombarded. And they're like, you can't get on this bus unless we're only taking children. They see Niakak.
Or like families with children. or
Right.
something,
Yes.
Yeah.
So Bull makes this split decision. He sees Niakak and is like, we have a child.
Pulls the old Billy Zane from Titanic.
Yeah.
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 And so they take
Pull-
her onto the
reverse
onto the
Daniel
bus.
Plainview.
Yeah.
So they take her onto the bus and they're able to get on and they're able to get out of there. And obviously we have this very traumatic scene where Niakak sees her mom,
Her real mom.
Yeah.
not getting on the bus, and we understand that they actually stole her.
Yeah.
And this is where it's kind of interesting because Riel really goes into this maternal situation with her and is just like, I will fucking protect you. I will absolutely keep you safe. So this is when Niakak, when they are we later see that this is when we understand that when they were actually they got her out of there on the boat is where Niakak actually fell off the boat.
Yeah. I
drowned,
took
and
it as
died.
the engine gave out. Is that what happened?
Yeah. So at the beginning of the film, it seems like just a couple people fell off the back of the boat.
Yeah.
But in this kind of flashback, it becomes more apparent that the entire boat just goes over.
Something happened
Yeah.
physically with
I
the
mean,
boat.
you clearly
the
see the
engine
weather
went
isn't
out.
great either.
Right,
So
no,
it's very
it's very
choppy.
chaotic and stuff like that. So they're really trying to craft this crazy sea. We're now back in the house, and at this point, Bull basically accepts what he did. He knows that this is officially his fault. He's the one who decided to take Niakak, and he needs to take responsibility for it. So he is basically telling Riel that I'm actually going to give myself to this Apeth.
Yeah.
And
Because
so
the Apeth has said to him at this point, or is about to, what does it say? Something like
Well,
cut
it-
your flesh, or
It actually propositions both of them with a knife
yeah,
because it's
Yeah.
it propositions Bull with a knife and says, take your
right.
give me your flesh and then
Mhm.
we'll
And then
be done
Riel
with
gets
this.
offered basically kill him and
Right,
you get
kill
your
him
daughter.
and you get it. Yeah.
Yeah. So we're going through the scene. Riel's almost in this other room and she's like, I want my daughter. And I think if I remember correctly, you start seeing Niakak almost reaching out, like this connection's about to happen as the Apeth is basically taking over Bull's body, which I feel is a really fucking cool scene to watch him
Yeah.
literally try to get inside
Yeah.
his fucking skin.
because Bull cuts his own.
He does cut his
Armor.
own arm.
Yeah.
Yeah.
He cuts his arm, and his
Yeah.
intention is to bleed out.
yeah.
But it's not that easy. The
Yeah.
the witch comes and is actually reaches inside his wound and is going to, it is seemingly trying to physically get under his skin.
Yeah.
Mhm.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's pretty wild. I love that it went there.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? It could have been a very symbolic, easy thing, but they're
Sure.
no, here's a fucking crazy ass witch.
Yeah.
Practical effect
Yeah.
driven witch with crazy eyes and
Yeah.
fangs and all types
Right,
of shit.
yeah.
I don't know if it
Yeah.
had fangs, but it had a pretty
Yeah,
it was intense.
yeah,
thing.
Yeah. And then Riel decides that she officially just wants to let go.
Yeah.
So this is her moment of she sees this happening. She sees Bullock making this acceptance that I think that was the moment. She had to see him accept that he needed to take responsibility for what happened versus try to disassimilate. So then it allowed her the space to accept that maybe we need to have this new life.
Right.
So this is where we're going together. She ends up slitting the fucking Apeth's throat, which is pretty epic in ways. You're just seeing it's
You didn't
this-
expect her to do that. Yeah.
Yeah.
It kind of it makes sense in retrospect, but at the time, yeah, she kind of it's mirrors the scene earlier with what the Apeth was attempting to do to Bowl.
Mm.
Because like, but in the manifestation of the murder, horde basically that was going around murdering people in their village.
Right.
Yeah.
And it kind of suggests earlier where it like jumped on, because it was a bunch of people,
Right.
Yeah.
and it was going to slice Bowl's throat. And
Yeah.
in this instance, she kind of does the same thing. She jumps up behind it and
Yeah.
Yeah. So after we have this pretty epic scene, we have Mark and everyone from that board then being like, okay, he clearly had to follow up and like check this out. They had fixed the house, they had fixed everything, and they're basically in this acceptance mode. And so they're taking pictures. They're Riel makes notes like, I think I'm going to paint it red. But what I really wanted to note, and I loved the ending of this too, is like this interaction between Mark and them. And he's just like, do you still see her? And they're like, Nyakek. And he's like, yeah. And I love that Bull said, like, your ghosts follow you. They never leave. They live with you. It's when I let them in, I could start to face myself. And then Rial leaves it with, this is our home.
Interesting that you find that's the best part, but okay.
No, I think that's just a great way to end it. It's like they know
it
it's
is
like
a good way to-
they know that like these things are their ghosts. And I
Right.
think like I know you're gonna go after me for this, and I'm excited to see what happens. But then obviously we end the movie seeing all of these ghosts of their past traumas surrounding them.
it's they're in their house. They can see them. They're dealing with them.
And they're
living with
accepting them. They're not scary anymore.
So I have a
Okay,
couple of
guys,
quick
come
questions.
at me,
well,
bro.
I'm not going to come at you yet because I like this movie. But like, here's a couple of questions, and this is more just like for my own knowledge, because I was confused by a couple of things, and I feel like I missed a couple of things that you guys picked up on better. But earlier in the movie, I was confused by this scene. Rial is home by herself, and I think it's when Bull, because it's relatively early on. I feel like it was Bull was going out to get his hair cut,
Mhm.
Okay.
and she opens up that door in their building, because they've given them like obviously something that was meant to be a dwelling for like multiple families,
Yeah.
and it's probably like at first you think it's because it's haunted, but you learn that it's not really the house that's haunted; it's them that's haunted.
Right.
But which I know is Steve's point, and that's
I
one of the
hate
points I'm
both
going
of
to bring
you
up,
guys. I
because the
hate
house
both
is not
of you.
haunted; they're haunted. But that's not what my
Both of you.
point is. My point here is she opens up this door, and then she sees what looks like the tailgate of a truck, maybe, or something, and there's all these kids that look like they're from their village or something like that are sleeping in the back of it. What was that? I assume she didn't actually see that. That was
I
just
don't
some
think
sort
it was-
of,
yeah.
you know what I'm talking about?
I think
Yeah,
it's like
it's
a more
her-
traumatic.
Yeah, I think it's just the way her kind of haunted experience manifested,
because it was very
different.
different than Bowles.
It was different from Bowles, yeah.
Yeah.
And like she also has a lot of experiences, like when she's just trying to find her way around the neighborhood.
Yeah.
It becomes very labyrinthian, and like
Yeah.
she just has like trouble getting around in the new space.
Okay, this
So-
makes sense now, because it's kind of like Bowles the problem, right?
Mhm.
He's the guy who's being haunted.
Right.
Like, I mean, she's experiencing it, but like it's more.
This is why it's the house that's haunted too.
well,
They brought. I'm gonna before you
their
guys like seriously
household-
come at me.
It's a haunted house,
They
not a haunted house.
they
Haunted
brought.
household.
So as much as I agree that like what this makes this movie so beautiful is that they're haunted, is that basically they brought the ghosts to this house, and that makes the house haunted.
Yes, I don't
So-
disagree with you. I don't think that this is a bad. I don't think
Fuck
this is a
you
bad
guys.
haunted house movie. If we're arguing semantics, here's why. And I wouldn't argue this. Steve's the kind of guy who would argue a thing like this.
Sure would.
I'm saying this is they are living in a dwelling, and they are experiencing haunting within that. Obviously, the haunting is not connected to the house; it's connected to them. But my point was the haunting here is like it's really more connected to Bowl, and she's experiencing it secondhand. So she is on this almost like
She's not doing anything.
spirit
She's just. I don't
journey-ish
think
type
she's
of
experiencing
thing.
it secondhand. I think she's just experiencing it
I think it
differently
manifests
because
differently.
because the focus of this like spirit is focusing on the one who like made the fucking mistake.
Yeah.
Which, okay, if we're talking about What happens when there is a haunted dwelling, though, but it follows someone? That's basically what we're looking at. So this is why I still think it's a relevant haunted house movie.
I think it is. It's a haunting that that like is absolutely focused around the dwelling. Of course, we learn later that the origin story would suggest that it is more tied to the individuals than the actual structure, and like I'm okay with that. You know, I think, yeah. I mean, how many? If you really think about like how many like purely haunted, like I think of the Changeling. That's a fucking haunted house.
Yes.
The house is haunted because of the people who used to reside there.
Sure.
Like totally
Yes,
get that. So like that is a pure haunted house movie in the most like pure sense of the word. But like this is them in a house, a new thing that is straight. It has all the same hallmarks of something like a Changeling. It's just you ultimately learn that it was based on their deeds and not the deeds of somebody who lived there 100 years ago.
Sure, I can understand exactly what
are
you're
you
talking
calling Nightmare on Elm Street a haunted house movie?
No, because it never focuses around a dwelling. It happens all over the town, all over the neighborhood. It is a haunted
So
town.
like Terrified, and that there's multiple houses.
But then
if
we're talking geographic location, it is tighter, and I think that Terrified, because it is associated with some sort of geographical function of that area, which in this instance apparently is the water, like that area is haunted, right? So like you could say, like we would agree that Poltergeist is a haunted house movie, right?
Yeah.
The house isn't haunted. The land the house is on is haunted.
Sure. Yeah.
I mean, it's fact.
Yeah. Because it's what's buried in the
buried
ground.
under the ground. So it's not a haunted house. It's a haunted yard. It's a haunted piece of
It's a
property.
haunted space.
It's a haunted piece of property.
Yeah.
So if the tiny little, you know, probably several hundred square foot area that Terrified exists within, if you took the Changeling house, which is enormous, and put that property on top of that, it would be a haunted house now?
Yeah, that would be a haunted house. But
like the semantics are so messy.
But the problem is with Terrified is it leaves the geographic area.
At the end it does.
Yeah.
Fucking A-right. It absolutely
But also it does occur in other places, in like it occurs in the United States. So it's tied to the same. If you're calling it the same microbe, then it's like it's an interdimensional thing that crosses
right
a larger geographic space.
My point is if you said elevator speech, quick, what's going on with this movie? There's people who are neighbors and their houses are fucking haunted.
Right.
You know what I mean?
Yeah.
If you talked about this, people, refugees, they come, they get placed in a house. There's fucking haunting.
Right.
You know what I mean? It's a fucking haunted house movie.
Yeah.
Like I don't think either one, like I think once you get to the ending and the actual semantics of the haunting are associated with more than just an individual house, I don't think detracts from the fact that it is clearly the sentiment of a haunted house movie.
It's the sentiment of a haunted house movie. But the houses aren't haunted. And we were pretty clear that the houses had to be haunted.
You didn't pick a horror movie.
So it's either
we didn't say it had to be
haunted
horror
house or it had to be a
Say
horror.
it had to be a haunted house.
It's a horror podcast.
movie.
We said it couldn't be Ghost Ship because the ship is haunted. You couldn't do Nightmare on Elm
But
Street.
but still,
all
every
about
single one of our movies, the houses themselves were like the dwelling was still haunted in some fashion.
The haunting takes place
still
within four walls.
Yes, I still think that is a factor for all three of our movies.
Can I ask you guys a question? Because this
No.
is genuinely something no more questions.
Anytime Brian says, "Can I ask a question?" there's usually something really shitty behind it.
Yeah.
No, I don't. Come on. So visions, like that vision around the campfire thing. This is a genuine question. This isn't like I'm trying to poke holes in your movie. What did Rial block out the fact that she wasn't really their daughter?
I mean, I feel like we're talking about trauma. Like
Yeah.
you're definitely talking
Okay,
about like
that's how I
what
took
trauma
it.
could do, and there is a very good possibility because I feel like the way they made it out to be is like that was their daughter.
Yeah.
You
Yeah.
know, so they
Yeah.
clearly were like, no, this is our daughter.
I think she blocked it out
Because
because
Bull
Yeah, I think it's super
definitely
fair.
remembered that because he was like, think of the things we had to do to get here. Or
Right.
whatever.
Right.
And
Yeah.
but I feel like Rial had forgotten and
She-
actually thought it was her daughter.
she totally did, because in the scene, in kind of the longer spaced scene when she tries to escape the house and she goes back to that school,
Yeah.
she's sitting in the communal space with the other women,
Right.
and it takes the other women to tell her that she was never pregnant.
Yeah.
Mhm.
Oh yes.
Right.
You're right. Yeah.
Yeah, so
Totally
she
forgot about
she
that.
completely blocked it out.
Yeah.
Yeah. Okay. Good. So I
Mhm.
wasn't crazy in thinking that.
No.
Yeah. I it was a good movie. I'm definitely glad I watched it. They make you care about the main characters a lot.
Mhm.
You know, you fear the spirit and the bureaucracy. You
Mhm.
know, which I think was a great like 1-2 punch. The performances were great. Here's my problems with the movie.
Okay.
It took 40 minutes before anything happened. Like it was a slow burn. And that's fine because the
Mhm.
changeling's kind of the same way. And I know we didn't pick the changeling.
Yeah.
But like the pacing is really slow.
The pacing is off.
Yeah.
I just felt like it still in ways was tense. Like I still in ways you like because it wasn't in ways where you aren't getting hit with like the spooky shit. You're getting hit with like the bureaucracy shit where you're still feeling something. And I think almost like so I hear what you're saying. I'm not gonna like deny what you're saying,
Hmm.
but what I'm saying is like I still felt a lot very early on.
Yes. You're all about the tension, the empathy for the main characters. All that stuff is there. Takes a long time before any type of like haunting things
I
happen.
felt like it happened. I don't know. Maybe it's just perceptive why, but it
Yeah.
felt like it happened pretty quick in
Yeah.
the first night they're in the house.
Yeah.
There's that really quick jump scare of
Yeah, him looking in the window and the things
Mhm.
behind him.
Yeah.
Yeah, that happens pretty quick, but like I think that happens maybe like I don't know 25 or 30 minutes in.
yeah,
Mhm.
But
but
then
then
there's, like,
it just
It
cuts to
takes
him
a
like.
while for it to
Then he
anything
goes
happen.
on his errand trip,
Yeah.
Mhm.
and like he doesn't even really notice what had happened. So yeah,
Yeah, and again, he is a bit of an unreliable narrator, and there's the PTSD aspect of it and all that stuff. It just, yeah, the pacing wasn't great for me overall.
Yeah. I think also when they transition, even though I think I really like those scenes with Rial back in Africa, like they're really, really effective, and
Mhm.
especially when Bull discovers her in the cabinet,
Mhm.
and you're not quite sure what's going on, but
Yeah,
you hear.
why are you in this cabinet? Why
Yeah.
are you like stumbling out? Yeah.
But it's
Mhm.
like it's really faint in the audio. You can hear like little pops
Oh yeah. no,
of
you can hear-
distant
yeah.
gunfire.
Yeah.
Oh, I missed that.
Yeah,
Yeah.
There's like little pops of distant gunfire.
You just know something's going
Mhm.
down, and that's why like you know that like no one's around her, so she's hiding because everyone's probably
And
dead.
then they do the pan across the school,
Mhm.
Yeah.
and then you see that everybody's been executed except for her.
Mhm.
I wonder this movie, like, I don't know how else to say this. And I like the characters, I like the story. It has that like modern Netflix horror kind of sheen on it
Mm-hmm.
Mhm.
that just like makes it feel like it's a horror movie even in areas when it's not. You know what I
Mhm.
mean?
Right.
So
Sure.
like that's not a bad thing or a good
Mhm.
thing. It's just like
I-
you almost know what's. This sounds dumb,
But
and
I
maybe
think,
this
like,
isn't fair,
even
but
maybe-
you know what's happening as a result of it.
Maybe it's
Yeah.
even a speculation of like what you're saying, but I feel like in ways, and maybe it's the sensitive person inside of me, but like I feel like sometimes we're trying to find horror in like real life.
Yeah,
You know, and I think like that's what also this movie brings to the table is
Yeah.
like there's still this like horror element in like what does reality look like for other people.
yeah,
And I think that's one thing they did really well with.
yeah. It's very much a social horror movie.
But
Yeah,
and
for
when you talk
sure.
about like even Netflix, I feel like sometimes they try to bring like emotional elements into it to
Yeah.
try to like get people connected to something. And
Yeah.
that so when you say the sheen, I don't know if that's exactly what you mean, but like I think sometimes that's what they do.
Yeah, it's like and it's not a bad thing because like the production value's there and the shots are good and all that sort of thing. But like, so I'm looking at this director, right? And I'm looking at like what he's done prior to this, which is like not much.
Mm-hmm.
Mhm.
And the writers are like I don't know. I don't want to get into it, but like, because I don't want to speculate anything about like their history because I don't know much about them or anything. But like, it just if there is a type of movie that feels like it was directed by Netflix, you know what I mean?
Mhm.
So kind of the same way that all the Marvel films
Yeah.
feel
Yeah.
exactly the same.
Sure.
Yeah.
And they're never going to go too far out of the bounds unless you go
Mhm.
back to pre-Disney shit.
Yeah.
Sure.
Yeah, a lot of Netflix productions have that same feel of like there's a safeness, there's a sheen to it, there's a
You
professionality.
kind of know it just it leads you in the direction
Right.
like you know what's going to happen.
Yeah.
Not
I could definitely understand
Yeah.
that.
And
Yeah,
you know what?
for
And
sure.
I applaud this movie because I did not expect to see a witch at the end, so I thought that was cool. Like I definitely didn't expect that.
I just feel like this is your next point.
No. Here's my other point. I don't know what the message of this movie is, and I don't care. That's not that big of a deal.
hmm
You know, it doesn't have to have a message, but like when you have a movie that is so, it seems to be very explicitly trying to tell you a message, and yes, the empathy around the people who are put in this very difficult situation and all that stuff, like that's a big part of it. I get it,
Right.
but like, what is it trying to tell? What did they learn? What did the characters learn? Because it was almost a character study.
hmm
You know what I mean? You know, if we think about like Wolf of Snow Hollow, it was a fucking character study of Jim Cummings' character.
Right.
This was for those two, but like what ultimately don't steal children? You know what I mean?
No,
Like,
I
what-
don't think in this way it was as much about like this message, because in a way like I think what they learned was honesty, and I think like really facing your trauma.
Yeah.
And I think
Mhm.
that was more of the focus is of like and that's why that quote that I mentioned at the end I think is like really powerful.
Mm.
And like why a lot of people could take away from that is that not only are they being haunted in this house, in this space, but like we're also talking about this relationship between trauma and facing it
Mhm.
and learning from that. And
Yeah.
so, and honestly, I think
think
the
you're right.
message was Bull actually facing his ghosts and admitting what they did.
Don't run
And
away.
so-
You got to face your trauma, not run away from it.
yeah,
Right?
I think to me,
Yeah,
like
that's
that was
probably
my
right.
biggest takeaway from like as far as the message
Yeah.
goes.
That's
just-
probably a good distillation
Yeah.
Yeah.
of it.
And like from Rial's point of view of it, because it manifests differently for both of them.
Hmm.
But like with her killing the Apeth at the end, that's a lot of it's. She was very resistant throughout the film, giving up anything culturally.
Right.
But by killing that ghost or witch, she gives up like kind of the worst parts
Yeah.
of
Yeah.
her culture. But she
Mhm.
still knows that she has all those people that she saw,
Mhm.
connected with in the school.
Mhm.
Those are still all a part of her as well.
And
Yeah.
which is why I feel like you see all of these people
Mhm.
like when
You see 'em
Mark
all in the
and-
doorway.
Yeah, you
Yeah.
see them all around and stuff like that.
I would say the only other thing that, because like I said, liked the movie for sure. The one other thing it wasn't particularly scary
Yeah.
for me. I like the imagery around the ghost at the end. I
Mhm.
like the intensity of that scene. I like the effects.
I think what scared me most, and like I'm not trying to like discredit how you felt about it. It's just like like some of the scenes where like turning off the lights to turn on, like especially when Bull's getting like fucking attacked. And I understand we didn't have a lot of those throughout it, but it's just
Yeah.
like I feel like those scenes were so intense that I feel like they were really spooky.
Yeah,
and
that
stuff
was a
like
good one. I like that scene. I feel like the movie wanted the big scary trailer parts,
Right.
to be the kid peeking through the
Sure.
doors and through the walls and stuff, and those weren't really effective to me. But honestly, the scariest part was the you were worried that they were gonna get sent back. Like
Mhm.
those were the most tense and scary parts for me.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Which is not, I'm not discrediting that. That's fine. That the fact that's a testament to how much they made you care about the characters,
Sure.
Right.
which is a positive. But I do wish the imagery of the kid in the mask wasn't scary to me.
Yeah.
Mhm.
You also get there's more tension, especially towards the end when Bull starts like knocking off all the locks and everything.
Mhm.
You start thinking, is this going to take like a Shining turn?
Yes,
Mhm.
And like, is this going to turn into violence of him, on her?
Mhm.
I was kind of like, she stabbed him in the leg pretty fast.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? Like, and it's fine. It's like, I'm not going to blame, like, somebody starts locking you in a house, like, I don't know, stab his ass.
Right, yeah.
You know what I mean? That's fine. But like, it was funny that like, they have this like very deep connection and they're like each other's whole world. And then he starts going a little crazy and she's like, fuck you, stab him in the leg with a screwdriver. I was like, all right. Okay.
No, but also, you escape, mass genocide.
Yeah.
So like,
Yeah.
Well, and she even says
Leg
to the rest,
stab is-
she's like, listen, witches don't scare me, motherfucker. Like she even kind of says it earlier. Like,
Yeah.
you think I'm scared of some fucking witches, like the shit
Right.
I've seen and dealt with and stuff.
Yeah.
So
but it's also in a way like she manifested the witch for Bull by speaking it into existence into his head.
yeah.
And that's what, it started manifesting for him that way.
Yeah.
So
All right, guys, I think we've gotten to the end. I
Oh
think
my
it's
dog.
time to vote. What
I want to go last because I think as the champ, I get to go last. Okay.
Yeah, I mean,
okay.
how did we do this in the past? We did it where we voted. Did we voted in the order that we talked about the movies, right? Did we do that?
That's fine. I feel like that's
I don't know if we've
fair.
done it that way, but we can do it that way.
Yeah, we
Yeah.
can do it. We can.
Otherwise, Meg's gonna pick, and then
Right.
she's probably gonna pick that anyway, right? So,
Do I need to call myself your fearless leader again? Yeah.
all right, Steve.
So we had the prompt. The work was to do haunted house movies.
Mm-hmm.
And only one of us did a haunted house movie.
I still beg to differ. I think
Yeah.
you think you definitely had a haunted house movie.
I definitely had
Well,
a haunted
both that
house
we
movie.
did as well.
I would agree.
You would agree.
Yeah.
I do not agree.
Yeah.
I think both you
We know what
came
your
up
angle
short.
is. We know what your angle is.
Both
You
you
made it
came
very
up
clear.
short on
Sure.
doing haunted houses.
Okay.
There's plenty of other haunted
Okay.
house movies, like Legend of Hell House. That was a haunted house.
Mm-hmm.
Changeling is a haunted house.
Yeah.
Those are houses.
Yeah.
I
With
also.
ghosts and
Oh wait, no, I'm
residentials?
not going to say it right now. Not. I love you,
All right,
Steve.
spit it out, you bastard.
But also just in general, like I had a lot of problems with Terrified.
Mhm.
It didn't. I don't know. It didn't hit me as scary.
Oh,
And
okay.
that's my own fucking desensitization as well.
Sure.
So just nothing. I thought there was some cool things in it, but then I thought there was a lot more other stuff that just fell apart.
Hmm.
And just the whole Star Wars reveal made the thing laughable to me in the
Yeah,
end.
it was bad. The
I was just
ending's
like,
bad.
mother-
I'm not gonna listen. I'm not gonna sugarcoat it. The
yeah,
ending
yeah,
was
yeah,
bad.
yeah. It just ruined it for me.
Mm.
Like not terribly. I still think it's a way better and effective movie compared to a lot of stuff that's out there. I think
Mhm.
everybody should check it out
Yeah.
if you haven't already. But just be prepared to go, God damn it, that's silly.
The ending
Yeah.
fucking blows. Yeah, I get
Yeah.
it. I actually kind of forgot about the ending until I saw it because this is only the second time I watched it, and I was
Yeah.
like, God,
Ah,
fucking damn it!
damn it, got myself.
The ending sucks worse than I
Yeah.
remembered.
Yeah.
Meg's movie I like as well. I like it a lot. Again, definitely watch this movie if you haven't seen it. But I can't vote for it outright because one, I don't feel it's a haunted house movie. Two, the pacing is structurally weird.
Mm.
It's also Mike Flanagan trauma porn. And it just
I wouldn't even
basing-
say it's like trauma porn though. I feel like it's like much better than
it's much better.
You know?
And I honestly, if you're gonna watch this movie, you can pair it with it's another film that had Idris Elba in it, which was about like child soldiers in Africa.
I know you're talking about. I can't think of the name.
They're-
I've not seen it, but
yeah,
I
they're
know
both
you're talking-
visually. They're both very similarly visually striking. There's a lot of good things going on with that, but just from the
There's
aspect
big
of
slow zoom shots and all those types
Yeah.
of things. Yeah, I know.
and
what you're
there's some
talking about.
great set pieces in both of them. But just to like think of rewatching either of these movies versus the same way I would rewatch Beetlejuice,
Mhm.
I'm gonna watch Beetlejuice a
Yeah.
bunch,
Yeah.
Sure,
which
same.
is a haunted house movie.
Same, not a horror movie, but sure, haunted house movie.
It's a haunted house movie. So first vote goes to Beetlejuice.
Yeah, no shit. Thanks for that long, belabored explanation that you're gonna pick your own movie. Thanks a lot.
Yep. Gotcha.
All right. I'm gonna stick with mine as well because I really. It's hard. It would be. I love Beetlejuice. I love Beetlejuice. I've seen it 100 times and I'll watch it 100 more times. It's just not a horror movie in my mind, and so it's hard for me to pick it. So I'm going to stick with Terrified.
Okay. I'm also going to stick with mine because what you even said about this whole trauma porn thing is like what I love about newer horror films is that sometimes it doesn't have to be about like the gory spooky shit, but it's about this like emotional thing that people go through that is so terrifying. And I know like personally when I sometimes go out and seek new films, like those are the type of things that I'm looking for. I want real life that's actually scary.
Yeah.
So I'm still going with mine. So we are now even. Steve, what's your second choice?
So Beasts of No Nation was the Idris Elba movie.
Okay. Don't play the numbers game, you bastard. What movie
I'm not trying
do
to
you
play
like
a numbers
more?
game. I was actually just thinking, should I just be funny and vote Beetlejuice again, and then vote Beetlejuice as a third time, just so I can say it's Beetlejuice, a Beetlejuice.
That's pretty good.
No, as far as if it's movies, I just like more. I did like His House more.
Okay.
I just think, yeah, even though I think it's not as scary or anything, but there's some visual set pieces that are really fantastic.
Yeah.
Compared to like Terrified, I think there's some good stuff in there, but I think you can also find it in other movies like Grave Encounters.
Yeah.
So, yeah.
I'm back and forth because now the question becomes, do you weight the fact that it's not really a horror movie over it's not really a haunted house movie?
Do you want to be hypocritical?
What's that?
So do you want to be hypocritical on this entire episode?
No. Beetlejuice, I liked His House okay. I'm never gonna watch that movie again. I just I feel like
it's not fun.
It's not only is it not fun, and that's fine because there's plenty of movies that aren't fun that I enjoy, but like
is this turning into,
I
guys?
just don't I don't know. It just felt like a movie that could have easily been just I don't know if this is fair to say. It just didn't have. I don't know. It just wasn't scary to me. Like it was tense in the way that like social issues create tension, but like none of the witch stuff was scary to me. Boy, I'm still waffling here because I don't know, but I honestly. Beetlejuice is a fucking great movie. I'm gonna pick Beetlejuice.
What are you gonna watch again?
Yeah,
Beetlejuice.
I could totally fuck this up right now and choose your movie.
You could if you feel like that's the best movie. I mean, that's really what it comes down to.
But sorry, Brian, it's not.
Okay,
I'm gonna let Steve win.
All right,
Beetlejuice across the board.
wins.
It's a great. Listen,
It was definitely.
Who doesn't fucking love Beetlejuice?
Yeah. I'm cool. I'm cool with it winning in November. Showdown.
Fair enough.
Showdown right after Halloween. Yeah, I'll choose yours as my second choice.
Thank you.
Yeah. I love me some Beetlejuice.
Yes,
let's
it
put
is
it this
an
way.
amazing movie.
Put it this way. I think my movie was I like my movie obviously more than you guys did, which is fine.
I do want to like note before like I really actually literally up until that like good movie like terrified me like in ways I was just like
There was one other thing that like really
good
bugged me
movie.
about your film towards the end is when it really started really leaning heavy on these new metal guitar strains for the jump scare stings.
yeah.
And that just like that bugged me too.
It was weird
Yeah,
because I mean obviously I didn't win. When I first watched this movie the first time, I watched it on a whim with no expectations.
Yeah.
I didn't know anything about it. And
Yeah.
it was just like a fucking Wednesday night. And I was like, okay, boop, throw it on. And was like, diamond in the rough. What the fuck? A movie that I know nothing about, a weird Argentinian movie that actually was effective. This is great. My second viewing was not as impactful. I will be honest. I really, truly blocked out how fucking terrible the ending is. It's
just
so
like
bad.
they probably could have
God damn it.
saved the whole
It's
even like microbe thing if they didn't do that.
Guys,
Yeah.
like
I just
they're
would
at
prefer
the
they didn't
finish
say it at all.
line. They're
Yeah.
at the finish line.
Yeah.
and then they fucking tripped and
then they
broke-
wink
knocked
at the
their
camera.
teeth out. I know. I just when I watched it the other night, again, only for the second time I watched it the other night, I was like, I ain't gonna win this episode because this fucking ending's trash. Yes. Listen, Steve won without actually presenting a horror movie.
Yes. He's a horror icon. If he wasn't, he wouldn't be at Halloween Horror Nights. He's horror enough.
Yes, it's great. Listen, Beetlejuice, I will
It's
never
horror for
argue
children.
against Beetlejuice. It's fucking great.
Yeah. All right. So here's the dilemma I'm going to present to the two of you.
Yeah.
Oh, God.
In the past, the champ has picked.
Oh, God.
It's not a hard one. It's
You
not a hard
two,
one.
you two just have so many in the arsenal that I
know.
feel like could like
I know, but
make my week suck.
Cradle of Filth 2.
Yeah.
Electric Boogaloo.
I'm going to leave it up to you two to choose.
Okay.
But this is my concession for kind of picking a movie that's a little bit out of bounds, and it's also just a really good movie. It's hard. It's hard.
You feel bad.
A little
feel
bit,
bad.
yeah, a little bit. I knew I was a little bit of a sleaze heel on this one, especially also because I spent time running down that your films aren't haunted house movies. They're haunted house movies. What are we
Of course
talking
they
about?
are. Yeah. Listen,
What
I'm
are we
not
talking
stupid.
about?
Listen, I was born at night. I was born at night. It wasn't last night.
I just said it couldn't be Ghost Ship or Event Horizon. That's what I said. But so here's the two punishment movies, quote. I don't think either of them are punishment movies, but one of them sort of more is.
Yeah.
We can do Tokyo Gore Police, which I've been promising for a
I've
while.
been wanting.
I've still not seen
I
Tokyo
haven't
Gore
seen
Police.
it.
We could do Tokyo Gore Police, or we're in November, and we could do seasonal, and we could do Thanksgiving.
I haven't seen it either.
Thanksgiving is a lot of fun.
Okay.
I almost think we just do a mini-sode on Thanksgiving.
Okay.
Okay,
Because
let's
it's
do Tokyo Gore
it's
Police
so
then.
stupid.
Yeah.
All right.
And just fucking dumb,
Yep.
but in such a fun way.
Yeah.
And I've not seen Tokyo Gore Police, so let's do that.
Okay,
If you're cool
cool.
with that.
Yeah,
then.
I'm cool with that.
Okay,
Yeah, I
so
haven't
then
seen either.
next week we'll be watching Tokyo Gore Police for a
Perfect.
mini-sode, and then sometime in November we'll just do Thanksgiving.
Thanksgiving
Yes,
is so
please
fucking
It's so
fun.
good.
I almost
Yes.
feel like we should do like a watch along, which the three of us like watch,
Oh my
especially
God,
if you've never
like
seen
on
it.
Twitch and stuff like that.
Or,
that'd be-
or
oh.
even here,
Yeah.
something, but like it's
Yeah.
such a fucking fun movie. It's
Yeah.
so fucking dumb.
Yeah.
Anyway, all right. So catch us next week. So Steve has taken home
Champ,
the
2
strap.
times.
The champ is
2
here.
times.
So
I think we're all
we've
2
all
times.
done 2 times. Yeah, we've all done 2
Yeah.
times. This has ended up becoming a very even championship count here. But so next week, tune in to listen to us talk about a cult classic, which is a first time watch for Meg and I. Tokyo Gore Police. It's been on my list for a long time, and I just have not pulled the trigger on it. As always, if you haven't already, check us out on the social medias at Halloween is Forever on Instagram, at Hallow Forever on Twitter, at Halloween is Forever Podcast on Facebook, at Halloween is Forever Pod on TikTok, and Halloween is Forever Pod on Gmails. I got every one of them right for the first time ever, guys. It only required 4 beers. And this has been a lot of fun. We'll see you next week, and we'll talk about Tokyo Gore Police. Anything else I'm forgetting?
T-Public, get t-shirts.
Yeah, go over T Public. Check out our link on the Instagrams or whatever, and the link trees. And we have some apparel on there. We got some cool t-shirt designs and stuff like that. So check them out if you're interested. Otherwise, for the Halloween is Forever crew, I'm Brian.
I'm Meg.
I'm champ again.
Hey, bye. Hey, bye.